Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
I know that we're
I
waiting.
know that we're waiting for
a few more
a few more
participants.
participants,
And when we do, we'll
and
get
when
started.
we do, we'll get started.
And
Admir,
if you could
if
just,
you could just,
let me see here.
let me see here.
If you could just lower the
If you could just lower the volume of
your laptop. Okay, testing. Okay, we're good.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. You can go ahead.
Devices in order to make sure that I got rid of an echo. So I want to welcome all of our participants to this hearing today. I want to gavel us into session and then turn it over to Laura Smoleski-Peters to continue on. Ms. Peters?
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Samosky-Peters. I'm from the Office of Shared Accountability for the Buffalo Schools, and I'd like to welcome you to the public hearing for Brick Charter School. This meeting is scheduled to go from 4 until 4:45, 4:50-ish. We do have a hard stop at 4:50, so our board members can get to their next meeting. I also have two members from the Office of Shared Accountability here scribing for us, Brad Behringer and Abigail Walski. I would like to welcome our board president, Petrucci, here, board member Mrs. Felton-Kopman, and board member Scott are with us tonight as well. You have approximately 20 to 30 minutes to do your presentation, and then we will have questions afterwards. And I will turn it over to you to go ahead and start your presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much for having us here. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us.
We kind of echo in here, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for having us today. We're very happy to be here and we're very happy to share our charter application proposal with you. My name is Antoine Barlow. I'm the Executive Director of the Brick Education Network, Buffalo Region. I'm today joined by Yolanda Wood, our founding team board chair, Dominique Lee, the founder of the Brick Education Network, Jeremy Esposito, our Director of Educational Instruction, Sakisha Leonard, our Vice Chair of our founding team, and also Pastor Jeff Carter, a member of our founding team. We will also have a parent that is going to be joining us. She's running a little late, but she will be here shortly. So with that said, we definitely want to start. Yes.
Could everyone mute who's on the call? Please make sure that you're muted. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay, no problem. So with that said, we definitely want to start the introductions of the two individuals which actually this whole charter application started with, which is myself and also Yolanda Wood. So I'm going to give the podium to Yolanda first, and if you change to the next slide, we'll go ahead and get started. We're introducing her, a proud resident of the city of Buffalo.
Thank you. My name is Yolanda Wood. I am a deputy faculty coordinator at University of Niagara. As a lead applicant, I just like to say that I'm excited about the opportunity that we've been given. I've been living in Buffalo my entire life. My kids live in Buffalo. We chose to live in Buffalo and stay in Buffalo. Sometimes we wondered if that was a good idea, but we still decided to stay, which is be here. So I'm excited about the opportunity and what we'd like to do for the city of Buffalo, especially for our kids that are just like mine. And thank you for your time.
If you can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, in the envelopes.
the video back, we can start with that, and then I can start over with the mission.
Yes.
Really quick.
Hang on. So here's that.
Okay, so as far as the videos, in the sake of time, we can actually move past the video and just keep going, because I know that you all, have a meeting after this, so if that's okay, I can move past the video. We downloaded it on the computers. I know that we downloaded the computers in the other room, so you all can watch it. It's a short video that actually explains our mission and vision. But just to go back, so we have our mission, and our mission is to relentlessly knock down barriers for students by combining two things: a rigorous education, but also with two generational supports to make sure that no child is left behind those barriers, and every child can succeed in the neighborhoods that we go into. But our vision, and we always are clear on our vision, and we are adamant about it, is that all Black and brown children will their knowledge, culture, and identity disrupt systems of oppression. That is something that we hearken to as an organization. It's something that throughout our organization we make sure reigns mightily through all the work that we do. So, with that said, as I talk about the mission and vision, you probably want to know, how do we implement this mission and vision? And I'm going to bring up our founder, Dominic Lee, to talk about how this mission has been implemented over the last 10 years in the Southwest North New Jersey.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. And I don't envy your job right now. So I just want to give you a couple of things of what we've been able to do in Newark over the past 13 years. If you can go to the next two slides. So I want to make sure that you understand that while we do use the school as a convenient institution for the implementation of our model, that is not all that we do. The school is just an institution that we believe that touches most of the families in a defined geographic area. Because our belief is that you should work with children from prenatal all the way up to age 26. And you're saying, well, how did you do that? And how have you been able to do that in Newark? What we say is that children and families are at the center, surrounding them is a quality school, and surrounding that is also the necessary social determinants of health around housing, around health, workforce development, and economic mobility. You can go to the next slide. So let's just start at the very beginning of our model at age prenatal. So what we call that is our Healthy Beginnings program. So as soon as a mother is pregnant in our community, we want them to give us a call. And they come and enroll with us, and we provide them with the necessary love and wraparound supports in order to ensure that that child is ready for kindergarten. And that includes quality health care, prenatal care, that includes quality early childhood education, and also family supports. As you know, Black and brown women, when they have pregnancies, most of the time have complications, and doctors don't listen to them. So we believe that we want to support them in that way. So we start at prenatal, then they go into our kindergarten program. If you go to the next slide, please. And then, of course, they go into our school, and I'll go past this because Jeremy and Antoine are going to talk about this later, how we run our schools. But as they move up the pipeline, they go into our K-12 system. But surrounding our K-12 systems are necessary systems such as wellness. If the kid is not whole, if the family is not well, then the kid is not going to be successful in school. We are a firm believer in that. We are just not about teaching 2 + 2. So how do we do that? And Newark can go to the next slide. Believe it or not, in the Southward of Newark, which is our home base, there was not access, better word. We wanted to increase access to healthcare because all we had was a neighborhood hospital. So we actually opened a federally qualified health center that is centered in our community. As you can see from the picture, it's a ribbon cutting at the top, and as you see at the bottom is our phase 2 of our project, which is a 4-story community wellness center that we hopefully breaking ground in June of 2023. We actually have a planning board date in November, so we're really excited for that. So that wellness center is connected towards our pipeline, so children and families can go to it. Everyone's connected. Now, of course, if your kid is not stable, they're not going to be successful, so we do focus on housing. If you go to the next slide. So over the past 5 years, we've been able to really put a footprint in housing in our community. We've been able to do around 96 affordable housing units with our community partner Community Asset Preservation Corporation. In addition to that, we bought a plot of land. We're going to do a 28-unit condo building, most likely affordable home ownership at this current point in time. And we just signed a deal with a developer to double our impact over the next 3 years with Dina Associates to do 200 units of affordable housing, a mixture of affordable housing and home ownership. Because if a kid is not stable, they're not going to be stable in school, and we know chronic absentee is a national crisis right now, so we want to combat that. And last but not least is that we want to be as a support to the family. Because if the child, all the things that happen in society are going to seek their ways in the schoolhouse. We all know this, we see this in our schools, traditional public schools and charter schools and private schools. So what we have learned over the years is that we have to be a support to them. If we go to the next slide, is what our Promise Navigation Program is. Our Promise Navigation Program is that any time a family is not stable, they come to us. And we provide the stabilization services, and we just don't stop there, such as fixing rental assistance and blah, blah, blah. We actually want to move the family towards thriving. And they are coupled with a community health worker. The community health worker works with them. The domain specialist comes in, but it's a whole care management team that is there to support that family. Because once again, we are a two-generation model that moves children to a pipeline. And from that point, last but not least, is our career development career pathway. Next slide, please. Is that we are not just educating kids to graduate, and we're also not here to just say to our parents, get a better job. We provide a career pathway program for children and families. So families want to do upskilling so they can go from a $15 a job to maybe a $40 a job or just a full-time salary. We are there as a support. So we recruit talented career workforce development partners. We bring them into the community and we support them in a way. At the same time, our program is designed for a career. And part of our career program was to open up a hybrid college. We all know college is expensive, and there's not that many alternative options for a college attainment, for you to be able to get a college degree. So we open, next slide please, is a hybrid college, what we call Gateway U. It is $7,000 a year in partnership with SNHU, and what's fascinating about this is that it's not based upon seat time, it's based upon proficiency. So so you're not just going to sit in class and listen to the professor. You actually get tasks, you complete those tasks, and you move along the continuum to get your college degree. So we work, as you can see, we had a ribbon cutting this year for this project. It's off the ground. We have about 64 individuals enrolled in our hybrid college. So this just gives you an example. Is that we are not just an institution that believes the school is going to solve generational poverty. School is going to solve systematic racism. We believe a comprehensive, holistic approach using the school as an entry point is going to be one of the game changers for a defined geographic area of a community. So that just gives you a little taste of what we've been able to do over the past 13 years in Newark. We're very happy of where we have gone. We hopefully be able to replicate this in the community that we've been welcomed to here in Buffalo. So with that, I'll pass it over to Angela.
Thank you, Dominique, for that presentation and your leadership within the network. So if you go to the next slide, you can actually go to it ahead. You can go to the next one. All right. So, Brick Buffalo Academy Charter School. So we talked about what the mission and vision is. We saw how it's implemented, and how it's successfully implemented within the South Ward of Newark, New Jersey. So we'll talk about what is the proposal here for Buffalo. So if you can go to the next slide. It's built on 3 foundational elements. So I myself, I'm leading this work in Buffalo to make sure it gets off the ground. I'm doing it because it's something that the East Side is very close to me. Something that I've been wanting to do is to bring a new educational model to Buffalo. So with that, we have 3 foundational elements. There's the rigorous curriculum, which is found within the school, but where we have the elements don't stop at the school, in the building of the school. We also have our Ubuntu theme, which runs throughout our school. And it means I am who I am because we are who we all are. And what that means is that we want to focus on letting students know who they are and also they know that they are part of a larger community, and they have large community responsibilities. And then the last one, which is the foundational for us, is the BRIC ecosystem. Our ecosystem, as we said, is 2 generational within our mission. It's not just about building the school. The school is our anchor. It's incredibly important. But what we want to build we want to have so much more impact within the area, and that's the impact that I want to see on the east side of Buffalo. Is the ecosystem. If you go to the next slide. So what was the first thing that we should do? You know, coming to the area, I know that I'm from Buffalo, and I know about Buffalo from professionally and personally, but I said I need to get out and actually talk to people. So for the last 2 years, that's what I've been dedicated to. Day and night, I've been talking to people throughout the city, and concentrating on the east side of Buffalo, where we want to focus our efforts at. I've talked to parents with school-age children. I've reached out to them. We've done direct mailings home. We've had open community forums in person and online. We've contacted people through social media. We've canvassed and we've tabled throughout the community and about different festivals to try to get feedback from parents. We've talked to the faith-based organizations in our target area. The faith-based organizations, we wanted to talk to them to let them know what's happening, but also get feedback from the members of those organizations. Elected officials, I've reached out to every elected official that I can reach out to within the city of Buffalo to try to do 3 things. Try to make sure that they know what our model is and our plan is, to receive feedback, and then also to see if I can get access to their constituents, to be able to let them know what's happening, get feedback from them. And then last, working with community-based organizations and community servicing organizations. Working with them, going to their events, talking to those professionals that are very mission aligned throughout the city of Buffalo, talking to them about what is needed. Is BRIC something that the community needs? Is our mission aligned with what the needs of the community are? So we did that. Can you go to the next slide, please? And we started to build those partnerships. So we talk about an ecosystem, right? So it's an ecosystem that is budding for us right now, where we've got people that we talked to and we said, hey, this is what we have done down in Newark, New Jersey. This is mission aligned with the services that you have. They told us yes, and what we try to do is start to build and try to say, can we build those relationships so that if as our charter application, as we go through the charter application process and we grow towards approval to having a school in the city of Buffalo, having these partnerships will help us actually coordinate some of those services for our students, but not just for our students, but also by us working together, make a larger impact on the east side of Buffalo. And that's what our organization is really all about. How much of an impact can we make? How much can we help the citizens of Buffalo? And that's what we try to do. Can you go to the next slide, please? And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jeremy Esposito. He's going to run you through a little bit of the specifics about what our school will entail.
Thank you all. I just wanted to summarize a couple of things on this slide that make our model unique for Buffalo. We will have and hope to have a school that has an extended day and extended year, running from 7:30 to 4 and for 191 days. We really hope to offer a culturally responsive education where we specifically celebrate the identities of our students, have a responsive curriculum, and focus on students centered instruction. We're very proud of our diverse staff. As you've seen, we have a Black school founder, we have a Black CEO, a Black board chair. We have many people dedicated from the city of Buffalo seeing this happen. Our Achieve staff is actually composed of 86% staff members of color. So we really are prioritizing diverse staff and feel confident we can do that in Buffalo. We are committed to the extra supports for the students who may need them, including our students who speak English as a new language and our students with disabilities. In addition, we're really committed, as Antoine and Dominique have laid out, to really trying to focus on all the comprehensive support services we can provide and we can work with partners to provide to the families on the east side. Next slide, please. And so we think this proposal really helps to meet some of the needs of the families of Buffalo. So recently we reached out to the Enroll Buffalo Charter site. They let us know that there were 2,570 Buffalo students waitlisted for charter schools this year, including 314 students in kindergarten and 262 in first grade. So we believe our proposal, and starting with K-1, really addresses that need right now in the city of Buffalo. Next slide, please. We believe that our model will also provide those families with a high-quality academic education. We're excited that our school in Newark was awarded Tier 1 Exceed Standard status for its performance on the 18-19 state tests. We're also very excited that she had the second highest rate of student growth in mathematics in the entire state of New Jersey that year, out of more than 1,700 schools. In addition to Chief students that year, we're in the top 15% of all students in English language arts growth, so we think we can provide a strong, rigorous academic program for the children of Buffalo. Next slide, please. We're also excited to offer what we believe is a very important cultural program. Antoine alluded to our Ubuntu cultural program in Newark, and that has seen some strong results. It's helped inspire high levels of attendance, strong student retention, even during the pandemic, and a really positive culture that does not rely on exclusionary discipline. There are many schools that struggle with high rates of suspension, but we are very proud of the fact that Achieve has not expelled a student and had 3 full school years where it did not issue a single suspension, either in school or out of school. And we believe that sort of positive approach to building an affirming school culture is something that we've heard families on the east side are very excited about. And with that, I want to turn it over to someone who knows the east side even better than me, Pastor Carter. So Pastor Carter, you can come up.
Thank you for the privilege of speaking to all of you. This is a very exciting time for me. Last week was an anniversary for me. 53 years ago, I began my teaching career, teaching 7th grade math at Clinton Junior High School. So the last 53 years, in addition to ministry, I have been involved in education. Taught in the Buffalo Public School System. I taught for the Education Opportunity Center. And I still am very busy moving around the city of Buffalo. Occasionally I do adjunct teaching for Houghton College. And I recognize this is a watershed moment for Buffalo. The fact that the Vice President was here today says that Buffalo has the national stage, as a matter of fact, the world stage, for the needs that are on the east side of Buffalo. I think this program offers an opportunity now. I wanted to show that we have needs, but that we can do some world-class things. You've heard my cohorts here give you some absolutely fantastic information, so I'm not going to talk about statistics and all of those things because you have some great information that you've heard and some that you're going to read. I'm on this board because I have found that the things that they're saying not only are phenomenal, I've had the privilege of seeing that I've studied, that they really are true. And went down to Newark and saw what they're doing down there and recognized that those things can be done in Buffalo. When we talk about quality education, when they talk about an ecosystem that's really going to deal with the needs of children, those are things that we really look forward to doing in Buffalo. We're looking at a site now that is right over on Genesee Street, very close to Houghton College. Houghton is doing some great things in Buffalo, and I look forward to this program being able to partner with Houghton College and providing some marvelous educational opportunities for our children. And we're looking forward to working with the minority community. We are partnering with professional minority organizations, with some of the nonprofits on the east side of Buffalo, minority nonprofits. And I think that, I know as a matter of fact, as I look at what Brick Buffalo is going to be able to do for our children, it's going to do some great things. I'm going to cut my comments short because of the time factor, but please, if you hear me from my heart, recognize that we have a phenomenal opportunity to do some things that our children in Buffalo drastically need.
Speaker?
Yes.
We need some time for questions, so if you could please keep your comments brief, that'd be wonderful.
Very brief. My name is Takesha Leonard, Dr. Takesha Leonard. I'm the medical director at Jericho Road on the east side of Buffalo. And I'm going to keep it very brief in that this has been a long process. We volunteered to be here on this board. I just got off of a 12-hour shift, but the reason I'm here is because I believe so strongly in the mission. I've seen the direct impact on health
mental, spiritually, social health, and education, working on the east side of Buffalo for the past 12 years. I believe that grit can bring a different perspective to our communities, especially our black and brown communities. And all I want to say to my team is that I'm so proud to be a part of this team, and I hope that you guys consider us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, anything else before we begin the questions? Do you guys?
I'll just say one thing. One thing I did want to say too is that we just have a desire to collaborate, and we know that Superintendent Williams has just started her term here, and we know that there is a vibrant feeling throughout the city about community schools, about collaboration, and we just want to make sure that we have a strong desire. And I have a strong desire to continue working with the district and also working with the school board to try to get us in that mission-aligned area to try to make something happen. And that's all.
Thank you very much for the time. So at this point, I'm going to open up the questions to board members. We have a little bit less than 20 minutes. So I am going to start at the table, and then I will go over to my board members that are in remote mode this evening, because it is a hybrid meeting. So I'll start with former President Sharon Cotton and work my way down to Mr. Scott and then Ms. Rivera. So, former President Cotton.
Thank you, President Petrucci. Thank you for your presentation. I would like to hold off on my questions until Mr. Scott presents his questions and the other board members. I really would. I'd like to see what they have to say at this point before I chime in. And I just want to see what the other board is thinking. Oftentimes, because I'm former president, I'm often put up front, and it looks as if I'm steering a conversation, and I don't want that to be the case today.
More to do with your proximity to me tonight, Sharon, more so. Mr. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Petrucci. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So, just for the record, it looks like in the application that you've submitted, the new application, that over the 5 years that if you were to have your school start in Buffalo, it would cost the district an estimated of over $6.5 million. I had questions for you then in regards to the high amount of administrative staff that you were proposing. At the time, it was 11. It looks like you've cut it down to 9. I still believe that that's quite high, even at year 5 with an enrollment of 468 students. I'm in a middle school right now with over 850 students, and we have 3 administrative staff. My question in regards to that specifically, and I have several questions after this, how many of those administrators will actually reside in Buffalo, be part of the campus in Buffalo? How many will reside in New Jersey? How many might be shared with New Jersey?
Yeah, great questions. I'll start and maybe turn over to other colleagues. 100% of the administrators for the school will be based in Buffalo. They will be in Buffalo, living in Buffalo full-time. When I check our stats in terms of number of positions, I actually get a different number than you. But one thing that we really believe is that teachers need high-quality support and coaching. So we have a principal focused on coaching, we have a vice principal, we have a director of operations, really focused on getting all the operational logistics right so we can focus on teaching and learning. In addition, some of the other things you may be referencing might relate to our desire to serve the neediest students, including students who are learning English as a new language or special education. So we've added staff specifically to support that.
Thank you. So in the application, it requires you to submit or disclose any applications that have been denied previously, which you acknowledge that when you applied, I believe it was 2020 or 2021, that application was denied. You share the letter from SUNY Charter School Institute and their reasons for denying you. One of the things that, well, first, just a general question. How have you addressed, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 areas that they raised in their denial letter. Organizational capacity, fiscal soundness, community outreach, support and demand for the school and school model and academic program. How have you addressed those areas that they raised in their rejection letter?
So, Mr. Scott, thank you for your question. So, first I'll say, I'll start in recent chronological order. So, the last application, I know you said denied, but it was actually withdrawn. So, we actually withdrew our application. And from that, one of the reasons why we did that is that we wanted to take a step back and build a stronger application. So that when we did resubmit for the city of Buffalo application for our charter, we'll be able to have a stronger application going forward and be able to be in front of you here today. As far as our historical applications, I'm giving it over to Jeremy to talk some about those.
Yeah, this founding team in Buffalo worked on the application last year and then worked on this application to resubmit. I think as far as changes over time, we made significant changes. Our goal was really to bring the strongest application possible forward. And so if you look at last year's application, it focused on opening 2 schools. We scaled that down to focus on 1. We scaled that down to focus on 1 school in the east side of Buffalo, where we had done the most extensive community outreach. We also added additional supports. So as we did more and more outreach, we realized just the extent of the supports that would be needed in year 1 to serve all of the students of Buffalo. So we added staff related to special education. We added staff related to ENL coordination. So we think our model is stronger as a result of taking that extra time.
Okay, so just one specific area that's raised here. BRIC has been a recipient of 2 federal grants that are made aware in this application, $29.5 million and $30 million. And the SUNY letter raises concern about the accounting of funds from those grants, how they're being spent, and potential mixing with South Ward Children's Alliance. Can you point me to where that is addressed in the new application?
Yeah, so what you're referring to is 2 promise neighborhood grants that we've been able to secure over the past 6 years. So $60 million that we've been able to reinvest into our communities to support the community at large. So as you're aware that we do have an affiliate organization that's underneath the same umbrella organization, BRIC Education Network, which is called the Southward Promise Neighborhood. That is where those dollars go. So what SUNY was not aware of or did not understand was how that money was not showing up on our 990s on the umbrella organization. There are separate 990s. So once we met with them and explained to them and showed them the difference between, that was all cleaned up. So I want to be extremely clear that we have 2 990s. There's BRIC and Southward Promise Neighborhood, and we actually have a third, which is Achieve. There's never no commingling of money. There's no commingling in bank accounts. We actually have firewalls between the 3, where people at different points in our finance office manages those 2. So once we met with them, we did clear that out at that point.
So they didn't require you then to disclose the accounting in the new application?
Disclose accounting, you mean the 990 audit? What are you referring to?
In regards to these federal grants that they
you said
raised.
Disclose accounting, that you don't disclose accounting. What does disclose accounting mean? You mean disclose the 990s, audits? What do you mean?
Well, they raised it in their letter.
Yeah, so in terms of the letter, yes. In terms of, yes, we did submit our 990s.
It says appropriately record fund transfers or whether the boards of each organization are aware of or when appropriate approve the transfer of funds.
Correct. So we did need to come and explain to them how our internal processes happen. Yes.
And they accepted?
Yes, they
did. Okay. And then you also applied twice in 2018 and 2019 for a school in South Bronx. Where is that disclosed in the current application?
Yeah, that's not a part of this application because this application has a lead applicant and a secondary applicant from Buffalo, where the application last year and this year. There's a separate team of people. So it's a separate applicant group that wanted to partner with BRIC. That's different than this applicant team, which is all people located in Buffalo.
But that was BRIC that did submit that application for a school in Bronx.
It's a slightly different thing. That application gets submitted by community members from the Bronx. That's different. Not necessarily a BRIC-driven thing, but a Bronx-driven thing and a different applicant team.
But BRIC will still be the charter management organization for the school in Buffalo.
Yes, that is our intention.
Okay. And so while we're on that, I'll skip to that point then. So it looks like from what I saw in the budget that you proposed, over the 5 years, 2.4 million would leave Buffalo and go to the charter management organization. And I also saw that it looks like in 2021, that 5.4, over 500,000 went to the charter management organization from Achieve. So that's quite a bit of public money that's leaving both of those schools, with the proposed school for Buffalo and the one at Achieve, that's going to the charter management organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's important to point out that I think all districts, charters, traditional public schools, contract outside services, Scholastic provides professional development for all 182,000 of schools. Districts contract with accounting firms or financial office to run things. I think every district does that. So there's no difference here in terms of the school we're providing a service to the school. In exchange, they're giving us a 10% fee, which is below market. So we run the finance office. We provide professional development. We do trainings and the curriculum that we write and submit to the school. So I don't think it's any different from the district doing Scholastic 180, REAP 180, which I think Buffalo Public Schools has done in the past.
You do, though, it looks like, have itemized a separate line for contracts and professional development. Separate from the charter management
So the
organization.
school can do some professional development outside of us. So for example, if the school wants to do, we're not going to do this, but just are going to say, we want to do a new reading program, Reading A to Z. BRIC is not the owner of Reading A to Z, so the school wants to do that, so that would come out of their bucket of money at the school level. So the professional development that's led by our academic leadership team, principal development, vice principal development, social worker development, sound development, all that development, that trainings that we do, that is what the school is providing us a fee for.
Okay, it seems like a duplication.
I wouldn't say it's a duplication. I'm going to be clear about that. The school can do a specialized program like Reading 1A to Z, correct? And then we can provide our own development, such as principal development to the school. So it's not a duplication.
Which is paid for on a different line in the budget.
Yeah.
Not part of that expense that's going directly to the charter management
You're
organization.
correct, but it's not a duplication. You use the word duplication.
The way you described it, I believe it is. But anyways, can you tell me another charter school in Buffalo that has an actual just charter management organization that's running it?
Yeah, so Buffalo United Charter School, National Heritage Academies is their charter management organization.
Any others?
That is the only one that I cannot call right now.
There's also an important distinction there. I believe that is a for-profit management company. We are a not-for-profit.
Right.
Okay.
Great.
The suspension data that you shared, what grades do you enroll currently? At Achieve, I'm sorry, at Achieve.
K. K.
So you have K all the way to 8?
We're missing 7th, correct? Yes, 7th is our gap year, so we don't have a 7th grade. That was a gap year.
So K to 7, or K to 6, no 7, then 8.
Yeah.
Okay. And so in 17, 18, I think is the first year you started.
I believe that is correct, sir.
Which grades did you have then?
We started with K1.
Okay, and then 18, 19?
K1, 2, 5, 5th grade. Yep.
All right, because that's when you had the 0 suspensions. Then 19, 20, you had your suspensions jumped up, and I'm guessing it's because you had older grade levels at that point.
Yeah, we have older grade levels, and then we also, got it. Yes, we had those other grade levels. It was a spike, but that, all transparency, we reflected and said that was something we needed to change, and as you can see, we cut down to 0. And that was me as a leader saying that's not what we do to our Black and brown children.
Okay, so then in 1920, yeah, you had 26 in school, 14 out of school. 2021, you have 0.
Yeah.
I assume you were mostly virtual that year, just many schools and districts, and all saw a huge decline in suspensions. And then for the last year, I believe that's last year, you had your suspensions jumped back up a little bit. So I just adding some context to when it was shared on your slide that there were 3 years with 0 suspensions.
Well, I think the context is helpful, and I think when we look at recent research around suspensions in big city districts in New York, you reliably see rates of 13, 15, 20% suspensions. That rate you're talking about at Achieve was never above 1.7%.
Right.
This dramatic difference of a 1.7% suspension rate to what we see is 10, 15, 20% in many areas locally.
Okay, so on that note of differences, 2019 state assessment data, what were the proficiency rates from New Jersey State Education Department for ELA and math that year? That was, and I assume that's the last year that they really have accounting for this state testing data.
That is correct, sir. 2019 was our last, well, sorry, we had the test this past year, but 2019 is the last published year of testing.
And what was the proficiency rate?
I don't know off the top of my head, to be quite honest with you. But in terms of, as we pointed out in the presentation, because of those results, we were tier 1 in terms of academic excellence in our grading system in the state of New Jersey. In addition to that, I do know for a fact that we did have the second highest SGP out of all schools in the state of New Jersey. So with those two things, I don't know the exact rate off the top of my head right now, sorry, I don't have that, but we exceeded expectations.
So I have this is directly from New Jersey Department of Education, 44.1% for ELA, 37.3% for math proficient, which was below the state average. What are your average class sizes?
Depends on the grade. Lower grades we are more because there's 2 teachers in classrooms, and then as they move up, those are so between 25 and 30.
Okay. And then what I found from the New Jersey Department of Education website was that in 2021, economically disadvantaged students equaled 50.4%. Students with disabilities, 9.9%. English language learners, 0%.
Yeah, so that data is wrong, and we've been very explicit. We fixed that error correction. So in the state of New Jersey, when a kid is direct certified, it was our assumption that they did not have to do the home survey, which does their tells us about their family's economic status. So we basically, all of our direct certified kids, we did not do that paperwork. And so then that resulted in a 54% of free and reduced lunch rate. Once we fixed that error, as you can see in our last state, which was 2012 that's published, our rate actually went up to a realistic rate, which is 85%. But that was a technical error there that year.
Can you have that shared from New Jersey? Because that seems to be a major error that is publicizing something that's significantly different. Because I did see a huge jump from the year prior, where you had a much smaller percentage, well below 50%, and then it jumped up to 50.4% for 2021.
Yes, we can definitely get you that corrected.
So in your application, you really highlight that BPS schools are not meeting student needs based on those state assessments. And so as a comparison, you picked out 9 schools that I believe surround where you potentially could have brick charter. And I just want to share as a comparison, the percentage of economically disadvantaged students for those 9 schools average was 93.2%, students with disabilities 24.7%, and then 10.8% for English language learners. So I heard you mention English language learners, but it's discouraging to see that you're at 0% in your current school. And yet it seems like you're going to make that a priority here. So
yeah, there's a difference between the defined geographic area, right? You know, you're going to pull from neighborhood. In our school that's located in the southwestern North New Jersey, that's not the demographics. It is pretty much an African American community that's been established over the years. But one of the things that we did realize underneath Jeremy and our leadership is that where we would like to place in the East Fork, that will be a need. So we did the research, we actually spoke with individuals about what we need to do differently, and that is why we have invested in the ability to support students that have identified in that category.
Two more questions on Achieve, and then I'm going to close with 2 more easier questions, and then I'll be quiet. So I noticed that Achieve was put on probation by the New Jersey Department of Education I didn't have the report, but I saw the news report, and it indicated it was a result of 53% chronic absenteeism, and that the trustees failed to, in quotations, clearly articulate knowledge of basic governance. What's the latest? That was 2018, 2019. What's the latest with that status?
Yeah, so that was an eye-opening call, and we were very transparent about that. We did get our Friday renewal, but exceeded expectations, but they did give us a citation for the chronic absenteeism, which was 53. So based upon that, we as a team, as we always do to support our community, put a plan of action. So I'm actually proud to say, even after the pandemic, we actually published our scores. We're at 14.2% chronic absenteeism, which actually puts us at the lowest in our community. And actually nationwide, as you see, as the pandemic, everyone went up, but we went down drastically. And how we did that: one, we invested in making sure that we were accountable to what we said that we were going to do on paper. We ensured that the staff that was in the school was doing their responsibilities around that issue. In addition to that, we raised additional dollars and supports to bring in promised mentors to support our families that need additional assistance. So that was an eye-opening call. We took it with stride. That was a problem. We fixed it, and here we are. We just did a webinar probably a couple of days ago, 2 weeks ago, in which we had the CEO of the Attendance Matters on with another board member, and where we basically say, this is what we did. Even after the pandemic, we have the lowest chronic absenteeism in our neighborhood, and we basically beat a trend that's happening across the United States, that chronic absenteeism shot up during the pandemic.
I asked you this question last time. How many self-contained classrooms do you have at Achieve, and how many will you have in this proposed school?
I'm going to let President Chief Academic Officer take that.
At Achieve, we currently have 0 self-contained classrooms. We have RCO and RCI. So given the needs of students, putting them in the least restricted environment to meet their IEP needs, we have not had to open up a self-contained classroom.
So no self-contained classrooms and any proposed for Buffalo?
We do not at this point have self-contained proposed for Buffalo. We have integrated co-teaching classrooms at every grade level, as well as special education teacher support services, and then additional wraparound services. As you see later in the application, we have things like hiring a psychologist to make sure we're providing as much support to families as possible.
The 3 individuals that have been answering the questions, will any of you be living in Buffalo and Benjamin? You will be, okay. And Mr. Barlow. So there's yeah. Are you living in Buffalo now?
Yes.
Okay. So more for Mr. Barlow and Miss White, I believe it is?
Ms. Wood.
Ms. Wood. Talk about the training and experience with Mrs. Fatima Burnham Watkins.
She did a lot of board development for us. I mean, we've been on this process for a little while. So at the beginning of the process, we would meet with her to discuss what is the board, what is important for us to know as a board if we want to be good leaders and do this thing correctly. She's done that. She met with us many times to talk about that. And at the time, I think we've actually increased our board members from the time that we've been doing all the way through up until now. But she has been like a board development professional for us, and we've been able to come in and talk to us about what board development looks like and what it means, because this is some of our very first time doing this. And the reason, like everyone has said, that we've done this is because I believe, and we believe in the model we want to do. Part of that is, like I said, I'm from the city of Buffalo. I live right by Tops on Jefferson, and I haven't left there. I don't live in the suburbs or on the south side. I live right there. So she's helped us really develop what it looks like for our board to be governing, what this is going to look like, what the partnership should be for us.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. Dr. Rivera, do you have any questions?
I just have a follow-up to what Mr. Scott was asking, just 2 questions. The first one is about plans for serving a larger population of students with disabilities. You make a very strong point about outreach for students with disabilities. And while self-contained classrooms might be one way to serve a wider range of students with disabilities, I'd like to hear about what kind of levels of service that you're planning to add as you move along, even within the co-teaching model.
Yeah, I think at this point, we are still in the process of developing what those models are like based on the students we end up serving. And so in my past experience, one thing that was really important was to meet the students who enrolled, understand their background, understand their specific needs, and tailor programming accordingly. And so right now we believe in starting with integrated co-teaching, starting with sets, starting with adding counseling and outside services. We anticipate those models would shift dramatically based on the needs of students that we saw, and that we would come back to that frequently to make sure we were serving students in the best possible way.
So are you saying that you would be willing to open self-contained classrooms as you move along?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. If that was a need in our community, I think our organization is definitely open to that.
It is a need.
Yeah, as a community member, I can tell you it's absolutely a need. And so I think it's really important to make that very clear to parents who otherwise might be dissuaded from applying to a charter school because so many do not serve our community. My second is about differentiation. So one of the things that the charter school law says that we need to do in New York State is to differentiate how what is being delivered is different from the existing schools in the area. And I see a lot of good, strong educational proposals, but not specifics about how that's different than what Buffalo Public Schools is already offering: culturally responsive instruction, restorative practices, a variety of things that you yourself acknowledge in your application that BPS is already doing, as well as some of the charter schools that would be in the area. If we are going to, so one of the needs, if a charter school is going to be approved, they have to definably serve a different population that is not being served right now. I'd like to hear you give a little more detail on that beyond what's already in the application.
Sort of one way to bridge the two questions is that we haven't mentioned this yet, but we do have an enrollment preference, specifically an admissions preference for students with disabilities and students who speak English as a new language. So you talk about making sure that we have open access and families feel welcome applying. We do think that that's very important to make sure we are an inclusive model. I think you also spoke on differentiation, and I think when I think of, you talk more broadly about it, I think specifically in the classrooms, I think one thing that we are very effective at doing is making sure we provide both rigorous tier 1 instruction and also supplemental small group instruction for students who need it. And so, for example, in math, that looks like a rigorous whole group grade level lesson, and then small group mathematics, differentiated on a daily basis to the specific needs of kids. Antoine, if you want to follow up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, when we talked about our the ecosystem that we're trying to build, and we talked about what we built and achieve, really looking at that as a model. If you look at those 3 foundational bricks, how they intertwine together to not just be a school, but also an anchor for the community. So our proposal is really outward facing. So looking at the east side of Buffalo, looking at, how can we impact community and really be in that community to try to make sure that we're building up a plethora of services around those schools too.
Okay, my question was more about how those building blocks and wraparound services are differentiated from the services that are already being provided by BPS. The partners that you name in the application are ones that are already partners with the schools existing, although I'm very glad to see that you reach out to them. The other piece that I'd also like to mention is, I did read that piece about enrollment outreach, and I do appreciate that, but I think that what's not clear is what happens when you have a student who is currently identified in the classroom. So say, for example, the least restrictive environment is already in 811 determined for those students by their IEP. What would happen if they get in via the lottery? Would there be a situation then where the family would be told that they cannot access the school due to a lack of potential service? Okay, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take up too much more of your time because it's already 5 p.m. That's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. Ms. Woods, do you have any questions, Board Member Woods? No questions. I have some. So one of the things that really jumped out at me is that 86% in terms of the demographics of your staff. So what percentage would be teachers, what percentage would be administrators, what percentage would be people in the cafeteria, people that are janitors, whatever it may be. Because oftentimes we've had people come here and they're not people in the classroom, and that's what we're looking for.
I appreciate that question because that's one that I agree. I hate when people do those numbers because sometimes it's not across the board. So if you take a chief leadership, out of the 5 individuals, all 4 are people of color, 1 is Caucasian. So if you just take the leadership at the school level, you go down to the ranks, it's pretty much just the same demographics there. We are very proud of that. Our teachers look like the community, the leadership looks like the community, and that is what we're proud of. And we set national trends around that.
So
I just want to add one point to that too, just as far as educators and talking about Buffalo. One of the things that as I'm talking with the board and I'm looking at it is that we have a clear focus on trying to work to try to make sure that we're increasing the number of African Americans leaders and also teachers. And we're looking forward to working not just for our school, but seeing that it's a problem throughout the area. We want to make sure that we're working with the school board, working with the district to try to see how can we make sure that happens. And that's near and dear to me as an African American educator and a male. That's a rarity in our area.
So it's near and dear to me also, and as someone that had apparently a disproportionate number of African-American male teachers in my life, which I didn't realize till later. But more importantly, because this is something that I've tracked for 20 years literally, and our teachers of color directly reflects within less than a percentage point what our minority population is in the county of Erie, and it has for decades. And we've all wanted to do these things. Trying to line the city of Buffalo is a little bit because of the economic situation, it's a little bit unfair. But if you use the county, it's a broad enough base. You factor out some of the economic factors, but it has been within a percentage point for decades, for as far back as anyone can see. And that has been a challenge for us, despite all of our efforts, despite working with the University of Buffalo and all of our other, despite doing recruitment at historically black colleges and universities and trying to recruit teachers from Puerto Rico, on and on and on and on. We have, so that really, because Buffalo is not we are not northern New Jersey, we are not, we are not in the tri-state area. We have our own unique set of challenges, and that has been one that we have worked diligently over many administrations with all of our local learning institutions to get that done. And there are certain things that we've done where we have been successful, but teachers in the classroom has been problematic for a long time. And that's one thing that, hey, if you could have 86, that would be wonderful. Nobody's been able to do it around here. We've all tried, not only us, but our suburban counterparts as well. And also the other school districts in the Big Five, because all of us have been working to achieve this goal diligently, every single person, because we want our children to see themselves in their teachers, and we haven't been able to do that. One thing that concerns me a little bit too, and I'm just going to kind of build upon a little bit of Dr. Rivera's comments, is none of us here are anti-charter. I'm going to say that, I will shout it out loud if you want me to. None of us are anti-charter. The problem that we have, though, is that we have the second highest saturation rate with respect to charters. We have over 10,000 students in charter schools presently. If they were their own standalone district, they would be the second largest district in Western New York. It is a large, so it's not like we are anti-charter. I want to put that out there. But one of the things that we're very sensitive to is that we want things that are unique and different. And many of the things, with all due respect that you stated, were somewhat duplicative. Our Office of Culturally and Linguistically Responsive Instruction, we won a Pulitzer. We had one of our teachers recognized by Time as being a Teacher of the Year. So, I mean, we're pretty much on the forefront. We offer middle early college where a child can presently get their associate's degree. Recently we engaged with Kilbert where you can take all their coursework online as well. So, I mean, we've been working towards that goal as well. But see, we have those things in place. So that's why when you want to do these things, I get it. I just wish that, I'm trying to see how you guys are different from what we already offer. One thing too is there are no financials. So, normally when I get one of these things, we do get some financials. because that's where a lot of this, I didn't have any financials in mind. Maybe there were attachment I missed, but I would appreciate, some of the financials here. I know Mr. Scott went and did his due diligence. I did not. When it comes to this, I just reviewed this.
Chair, that's the chair.
I know. He's very good at it, Chair.
I guess very good.
So, yeah, and that was it, because the other thing too is that one of the reasons why years ago that we wanted to say yes as opposed to the Excelsior when it came to our scholarship program was because of the wraparound services. Because we recognized, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that in order for our children to succeed, that they do need those wraparound services. And that's also why we've engaged with a series of partners, many of the same people that you are working with presently, we already work with. So those are my comments and concerns. I will turn it over to Ms. Kottman, and then Dr. Crestis has some comments or some questions as well.
Well, I want to thank my board members. They basically answered everything that could have been asked everything that needed to be asked today. Shout out to our charter school chair, committee chair, Mr. Scott. I want to just say this, and I needed to go on for the record. There's a tendency for charter school organizations to come here and compare an entire district, their school, to an entire district. And we need to be clear about that, okay? Because somehow or another, there's a tendency to paint a picture that Buffalo Public Schools is not successful, that they're not educating their student population, et cetera, et cetera. We have been able to continually progress despite the fact that charter schools in this district continue to send students to us that are not successful. And we have been able to persevere with that. So it does not impress me when an entity, a small organization or a school of upwards of 500 students try to compare themselves to an entire district of upwards of 30,000 plus students. It's just not fair, and it's just not what you do when you're doing like for like. So, I'm saying that because we have additional charter schools coming forward. I'm asking staff to put together a rubric. We will not be entertaining people in the future who do not have the rubric complete. We don't have to technically. We want that rubric complete, and the reason for that is that until, as I'm in the paper recently saying, until we see charter schools playing fair in this district, when we see them playing fair, then we can have a conversation. But until we start seeing them play fair, we're not going to just turn over the ship to them because certain people are commanding it. We want them to start playing fair. And that means that you provide education for the least of these. And I see you're trying to do that. I respect you for that. But I want you to be clear. This is the MO of charter schools in Buffalo, okay? And with the children that we get back are so damaged that we have an awfully hard time fixing them. I'm talking about things from IEPs being waived to get a kid in the door and then kicking them out because they, guess what? The IEP clicked in. They need the resources they needed. So you understand. But I commend you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for your presentation. There's nothing else that I have for you.
I do want to just say, here at Kinder Sitters, I want to be transparent. Our background is actually district turnaround work. I was that person that sat in the room and saw a kid be held back 4 times and then come to me as an 8th grader at Avon Avenue School. I've been in those cases. I know exactly what you're talking about. That is not us. We are organizations not developed. I'm agnostic of governance type. We are an organization that's centered on how do I support a child from prenatal. You're asking what makes us different. We are a system. We are an organization. We are a strategy. How do we support a child, a family from prenatal to 26 in a comprehensive, coordinated, attached way? So, I applaud everyone's actions, but I don't need someone's walking with a family from prenatal to 26 in the comprehensive strategy using the technology system, right? There's pieces here and there, but coordinated together using technology, walking with that family, having milestones, having the family action plans. That is what we are. So we are kindred spirits. I hate the slides about the charter community. You see some articles when I did district turnaround work. I was not the like person most of the time, because I would say this, like, this kid's been held back 4 times and he's coming to me. You have all the resources as a charter. Why are you kicking this kid out? So we are.
Why don't you have the special ed programs? Why don't you have the L programs? Why are you allowed to exist without making sure that you're mirroring the current district? And so those are the things that I plan to work on this year, okay, to try to fix statewide in my position that I'm currently holding with the Big Five, so that we can start having a conversation, because it's not fair to paint our school district in a light. The other thing is that I would like to see more of, and this is, I don't mean to disrespect anyone, is that when you come and present yourselves as the ones who are going to lead or be the leaders of this district, I would like to hear more from them than people who are not currently in those positions, who are not going to be those leaders. Because what it looks like is that it looks like there's a front, but then behind there, what's going on? And that's commonly what happens in charter schools, same thing. So, but the school is not up and running or whatever at this point, but I just want you to know that we did note that as a board, that happened today.
And I want to say, as a leader of this organization, I would support any legislation that allows for us to have a neighborhood pattern school.
A neighborhood what?
Neighborhood pattern school. See, this is neighborhood kids, you have to serve them. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Well, you know what? I'm old school. My ancestors died for us to go to school wherever they want to go. So you got to understand where I come from when we start talking about neighborhood schools, because you're not going to deny me the opportunity to send my child across town.
No, that's fine.
So as long as we understand where we're coming, because, okay, we have the right to go wherever a parent wants their child to go, including charter schools or private schools. But it's not going to be a scenario that because I live on Jefferson Avenue that I got to go to school within a mile or 2 miles of that. I will walk this table before that happens.
No, we're
seriously.
I was referring to charter schools not having L populations and all that.
Okay. Well, let's work that then.
If the state said you can have every kid in that defined geographic area comes to this building, you got me.
Oh yeah, no, we're not going to limit where children can go. I don't care what their the demographics are. What we want is the opportunity for all children to have access to all opportunity in this school. That's what our ancestors died for, and this district, and that's what it's about. So if the parents choose you, you keep them. Stop sending them back damaged and injured, okay, if they choose someone else, provided you get approved. But at this point, we are oversaturated, and we're not going to lose our school district like other school districts have lost theirs. We're not. We're not going to be oversaturated. If New York City can have a limit of having, 11% cap on New York City, then Buffalo deserves the same level of respect. And the schools that are not performing, they have to leave, because schools are supposed to be innovative. And then that creates the opportunity for people like yourself to come in. But just to feel that because this is that this money is coming in, it's public money that's being used privately. They don't report on the level of abuse that happens in their buildings. We are required, anything that happens in public schools, they treat the public money as if it's private money. It's time out for that. And I think that we have a growing understanding in this state about it is time now for, if charter schools are going to continue to function, that they work with the public school district, okay? And in addition to that, that they mirror it, and that they are providing the same services. And then we can get along all day long. Okay, but until then, we got problems, because we ain't gonna have it. I just can't continue to let public money come in and be spent by private people who are not educating our children in a fair way. But thank you for your presentation. I appreciate you all.
And just a point of correction, we do have coordinate efforts with our programs, and we do use data every day. Ms. Smolsky-Peters, who's sitting next to me, and Ms. Bullock. And just as a side note, my master's was on non-traditional measures that impact graduation rate aside from the traditional ones. So yeah, for many of us on this board, it's something that we've dedicated a lot of time and effort to try to to get the best results we can for all of our students. At this point, I just want to turn over to Mr. Carestas. I know we're running late, but this is important to you, and we want to make sure we gave you the time. It's also important to our board members who had a multitude of questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for Mr. Barlow.
Yes.
First, let me say I was disappointed that in the application, in the presentation, there wasn't any detail on how English language learners would be served inside of your school. And it's especially concerning to me because, you know, East Buffalo, the zip codes in East Buffalo are the largest or the most rapidly rising English language learning populations in the city. Well, my question for you is, since charter school students don't register through EPS, you will have an obligation to implement Commissioner's Regulations Part 154 related to English language learners. Could you tell me how that's going to happen in your school, and what assurances can you give, you know, parents who might be listening tonight that their interests are going to be protected?
Yeah, so first, I'll start with the first part of your question. So as far as English language learners, we've done a plethora of outreach to different organizations. Was the first step to make sure that we know what the community is actually facing, what the demographics of the community is. So we know that we're going to have to make sure those services come into play. As far as you know, working in school, our director of educational instruction, Jeremy, who has extensive experience working with English language learners, we're going to work together to make sure that we're able to move forward and be able to provide services to our students. In my background as a director of Upper Brown, and also what I've done, I've worked on the east side and west side, primarily with populations that were English language learners. So, you know, I've worked with a variety of students to help them from when they came here at a variety of different grades and help them actually graduate and go to college. So what we're going to do is, you know, I'll work with Jeremy as our director of instruction to make sure that we can put together a program to put that forth.
Right, but as the building leader, you have very specific obligations as a public school in New York State to, from day one, be very specific in what you deliver for English language learners who may be coming in as kindergartners or first graders,
yes.
And you have very specific obligations. Do you know what those obligations are, and if you could articulate those, what's the system going to be in the school to deliver those? Because they won't have gone through the public school district to access.
Yeah, so as far as those obligations go, I'll let Jeremy talk about that. So.
Yeah, I think Antoine spoke about some of the translation services. Our goal is to make sure we're providing translation services to all of our families that fulfills all requirements. I think one of the other things that you'll notice in our staffing model is we put a priority on having an ENL coordinator from the very beginning. So our first step is to identify an ENL coordinator to specifically provide those services to students and to make sure we meet every expectation, and that each of those students needs a customized support.
Just one last comment. I just want you to be aware that you're going to have. Could you put yourself on mute, please? Okay. Principal, because you're not attached to a school district, to make sure that home language questionnaires are immediately implemented, that we're testing for the levels of English language acquisition. If you don't do that, children will languish without the services that they need, and it won't make any difference if you have a coordinator. You'll be missing out on your obligations under Part 154. So I just want to make that point, that you need to be cognizant of what is required in the state of New York, which has very high standards for how English language learners are served. And again, I'm worried that the application and the presentation tonight didn't have any of that.
Yes,
that's the only comment.
So just one thing that I want to add to that, though, just to clarify, you know, my role as executive director of the region. So we co-lead the issue together, Jeremy and myself. So Jeremy, as director of education instruction, he's going to be working along with me. You know, with his specialty being ELL learners, to be able to try to make sure that we are meeting that criteria. So, as executive director, we will have a principal for school. You said principal. I just wanted to clarify that, is that we will have a principal at school, I'm executive director of our region.
Right, but Jeremy wasn't able to answer the question. That's the only thing I want to be clear. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
I also can follow up with more information
Okay.
from the application about it, including how we plan to administer those services.
Did I miss any of my fellow board members? I've only seen a limited screen here. I know Dr. Kathy Evans-Brown asked to be excused tonight. She is with the Urban League in New York City making a presentation, so we wish her the best and good luck on her presentation with her coworker. Anybody else?
And Hope has to be excused, and Terrence Hayden.
Then we're going to excuse all three. Thank you, Sharon, as well. They don't need to be excused, but we'll make the admission. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully you were able to, we gave you some additional time because you're so important to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick 5-minute break. We'll begin at 5:30, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
Dr. Brown, are you with us? Sharon Brown?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Okay, great. We're going to be starting in just a minute.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I gotta give you 5 later. I gotta give it to you. Will you do it?
I did my homework.
You whacked that. You whooped that. You
Well, Larry, because you touched on all my things about like percentages.
I'm gonna turn over here so I can see.
It was almost all of it was in their application.
Education, September, Wednesday, the 14th. At this part, we have educational support. Terrence is not here tonight. So I am going to turn it over to his co-chair, Mr. Larry Scott. Mr. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Petrucci. This is opening the Educational Support Committee work session. And on our agenda tonight is a presentation on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. We talk quite a bit lately about making sure our meetings are focused on students. And this presentation, this discussion is going to be all about our students. We know that with the pandemic, other local and nationwide crises, that our students have experienced a higher frequency and intensity of social, emotional, mental health difficulties. So this information, I think, is going to be very valuable that we're going to hear tonight. So with that said, I will turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Tanja Williams.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Scott, and greetings to all of the board members, board president, our colleagues. We do have some partners, I believe, that are with us tonight from the Market Decision Research. I'm very excited to hear the report out on the Youth Behavior Risk Survey. This is a national survey that is done. It's conducted by the CDC, and it definitely supports our district specifically. It's one of the ways that, you know, we look at getting funding that is targeted to support the needs of the students that are revealed from the survey that they've taken. It also will help us as we look at activating new partnerships and looking at the partners that we currently have working in the schools to make sure that the needs of the students are being met. So I'm very excited to hear about it. It also will guide, you know, our pedagogies instructionally as well as social and emotionally. So it's a very important survey. We take it very seriously. And, you know, it highlights not only some of the things that students need support in, but also some of the things that are going well for our students right now. So I will turn things over. I know that we have our our chief of Student Support Services, Dr. Sharon Brown, and she has brought with her Director Mai Nguyen, who works directly with this. So I will turn things over at this point to Chief Brown.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. And again, good evening, board members, Superintendent Williams, and our listening audience. And on behalf of the Division of Student Support Services, the team really appreciates this time to share these important data points from the district's Youth Risk Behavior Survey, also known as YRBS. And as you just opened up on Board Member Scott and Dr. Williams, we know how important it is to make sure that we're meeting the social emotional needs of our students. particularly as a result of all of what has happened with the pandemic and the other crises that our students have experienced. And so joining me this evening again is Patrick Madden. He's the president of Market Decisions Research, who will share the YRBS data. And again, my WEN Director of Social Emotional Wellness Supports with the Division of Student Support Services. And she will share how her department is addressing the YRBS data. And so we are pleased with the work of the YRBS advisory team. It's comprised of a diverse group of stakeholders. And special thanks to Ms. Wen, and Mr. Madden and their teams for leading this work. A lot goes into developing additional survey questions. We receive the CDC questions, but also we want to tailor it to the needs of our students. Also, we have to administer the survey, we have to analyze the data and respond to the data. And this is an ongoing process that we take very seriously because we want to make sure that we look at this through an equity lens and are supporting our students. So we know this work doesn't take place in isolation. So I definitely want to thank the board members and Dr. Williams for all of your support, your ongoing advocacy for our students to ensure that they receive an excellent education that not only meets their academic needs, but their social emotional needs. I always say that students, they don't, we can't just say a period of the day, we focus on social emotional. It comes with them each and every moment of their lives and those social emotional competencies. So the Division of Student Support team, especially the leadership team who assists me in doing this work daily, while Assistant Superintendents Ornice Hill and Tina Jackson, they recently joined the team. They have hit the ground running to support the work of our leadership team in schools and all of the directors and supervisors of student support teams. They're constantly working with the schools to support them. And again, the schools, a huge shout out to them because without the support of the ASLs and the teachers, the administrators, making sure they're creating spaces with all of what they have to, all that they have to do with educating the students, they create safe and learning spaces for our students to be able to take this assessment and really to take the survey seriously. So we appreciate that. So we view all of these data points through an equity lens that are reflected in the education bargain that was revised under Dr. Williams' leadership. And also the 3-year strategic plan of reaching all 5 priority goals by 2025. So we like to say 5 by 2025. So when you review the PowerPoint in the presentation, priority goal number 1, which is really to eliminate that opportunity and achievement gap, it is reflected throughout the entire presentation. We know that if students are engaging in unhealthy behaviors, it will likely have an adverse impact on their social and emotional well-being and their academics. So it's helpful that the YRBS data identifies those specific areas of concern, which informs a school's programming. So principals use these data points when they're planning ELT programs, when they're planning after-school programs, and also when they're planning supports throughout the day through their student support teams. So this is not just data that we collect and look at and put away, because students are more than a number, but the numbers are important, but there's a story behind each number. And each student comes with his or her own story. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting that each and every day. And so one of the slides that you will see, it really references linking the COVID-19 and wellness to academic performance, which is aligned to goal number 3, which is prioritizing wellness. And Dr. Williams' 3 big rocks that we are to focus on, which is leadership, learning, and literacy. And it really takes leadership, and it's leadership at all levels. To me, leadership is just not synonymous to being an administrator. We have teacher leaders, we have student leaders, we have our parent leaders, we're all working together to make sure that we're promoting the physical and social emotional wellness of our students. So I'm going to turn this over right now to Mr. Patrick Madden, who will go over all of the data with you, followed by my WEN, who will just talk about some of the resources and supports that we're offering. And then we'll entertain questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Happy to be here tonight presenting. I am Patrick Madden, president of a company called MDR. We are a public policy research and evaluation company. We were involved in the 2019 version of this project, and we're happy to be back to talk about the 2021. It's a pretty exciting time. I can share the slides, I believe, possibly. All right, thank you very much. And we're happy to be talking about the results here. I think one of the really interesting things we're going to talk about today is actually the impact of COVID-19 on a variety of different both academic performance as well as health behaviors. And I think, again, one of the interesting things we're seeing here is that at the national level, the data, the YRBS data at the national level was actually delayed as a result of COVID. So a lot of that hasn't actually been released yet. So the fact that you conducted the surveys yourself means that you actually are sort of one of the first out there that actually has actual data on the impact of COVID-19. So it's pretty exciting. You're sort of one of the early districts to get a read on sort of what's happening with students as a result of the pandemic. So a really great opportunity for you to see data and react to it, and then develop programs and policies to hopefully address some of the things that we're seeing here. But to start with, I'm presenting tonight, but this was, as Dr. Brown mentioned, this was an effort that involved a lot of people. So really just want to thank everybody that was involved, including the YRBS Advisory Board, which included a variety of different people, all involved in the design of the project, implementation, data collection, as well as analysis and reporting, and then ultimately taking what's happening here and then using it, which is sort of ultimately the most important parts of it. As well as the, again, want to thank the Board of Ed too, which we wouldn't be here today without the involvement of everybody putting together all the effort that went into this project. So again, thank you for everybody involved in this. As well as the students who took the actual survey and provided this information. I can go to the next slide. A little bit of background. Again, many of you are probably familiar with the YRBS, but since 2011, the district has administered a youth risk behavior survey, combined data from the national core YRBS questions, which include things like, behaviors that contribute to unintentional injuries and violence, alcohol and other drug use, tobacco use, sexual behaviors, unhealthy dietary behaviors, and lack of physical activity, as well as taking the opportunity to add district-specific questions that address, I think, specific issues within the district, things like additional questions around mental health, adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, oral and dental health issues, risk perception, and traumatic events. Next slide. New in this year, again, took the opportunity to add an additional set of questions related to COVID-19 that can sort of link the impact of the pandemic both to wellness and behavioral indicators as well as academic performance. And we'll talk a little bit about those results in this presentation. So again, we all know that since 2020, there's really been a systematic and quite extensive impact on students as far as the pandemic goes, due to closures that impacted student learning, decreased opportunities for physical activity and nutrition, and reduced social impact, interactions with peers. And of course, students with sort of lacked a supportive home environment, as things were pushed to that home environment, were particularly vulnerable population as far as the pandemic goes. So again, it's particularly important to understand how they were impacted as well. And of course, the key to all of this is really understanding not just how students are impacted, but then what do we do with it? So taking the learnings that we find here and then providing the resources needed to actually help students and address the issues that were encountered over the past couple of years. Next slide. Skip ahead again. Very quickly, again, a little bit about the YRBS methodology. Many of you may be familiar with it, but again, it's a survey that was developed and implemented by the YRBS Advisory Committee. Includes both a core set of national YRBS questions, so it allows comparisons to both the state and the national YRBS, and district-specific questions to address, I think, district-specific initiatives. The survey itself is quite extensive. It's 150 plus questions, covers many, many different topics that I mentioned earlier. As far as the implementation of it, it follows pretty standard YRBS protocols for data collection, in that the actual survey is administered in the schools themselves during the school day. It is conducted online in both middle and high schools. So middle high school students take the survey in school, but they do it online. And as far as data collection goes, the data was itself collected from the end of starting in the end of 2021 through February of 2022. So we're talking about, by all accounts, relatively recent data. Data were cleaned and analyzed, again, according to CDC protocols. And in one of the protocols is actually weighting the data by grade, gender, race, ethnicity of the student based on the total district enrollment, which means we get results that are representative of the district students that are enrolled. And of course, as I mentioned, new questions were added this year to get at some insights and data related to COVID-19. Go ahead. Finally, response rates. We did see a decline in the response rate in 2021. So 2019 was really a high point in terms of the response rates, both at the middle school and high school level. I believe they were the highest ever achieved. There was a drop in 2021, again, largely, I believe, related to the COVID and the pandemic. Just there was a lot of challenges getting in schools during that time. It made it much tougher, obviously, in 2021 to get school cooperation and get completed surveys when all of this other pandemic-related stuff was still going on. So again, that's, I think, largely what you see here in terms of that decline in response rates. However, I will say CDC guidelines for minimum response rate is 60% overall for release of public data. That's what they require. So even with the decline that we saw in 2021, the response rate both at the middle school and high school level is above CDC guidelines for data release. So overall, despite the challenges, we still have valid data that we can talk about here, which is great. You can go ahead. One more. In terms of overall results, really, you know, there's so much data here. These surveys contain so much great information. You know, we could talk for 2 hours about all of the data. So what we're going to do here, we're not going to do that. We'll go really high level and talk about a few sort of overall key findings. And then we'll jump into some of the COVID data, and then we'll jump into some of the academic links. But first off, at a high level, sort of summarize what's going on in 2021 in terms of what's going well, just a few data points in terms of areas that the district can celebrate or promote, both internally and externally, in terms of things that improved in 2021 or trends going in the positive direction. And then a few areas for improvement, or areas that we see that maybe a little bit on the decline, or that maybe require some additional focus for quality improvement efforts at the district level. Go to the next slide. So starting with middle school and what's going well, we're seeing some really good data points in terms of low tobacco use and decreasing tobacco use. So at the middle school level, just 1% of students reported smoking a cigarette in the past 30 days prior to taking the survey. That's a decline from 2019. We're also seeing a decline in other tobacco use rates as well. And vaping at the middle school level also remains quite low. Also low is alcohol and marijuana use, also declined in 2021. So reported binge drinking at the middle school level declined significantly since 2019. And we saw 6% of middle school students said they had ever tried marijuana, which is actually a decline from 8% in 2019. Similarly, we're seeing a decline in sexual activity amongst middle school students, decreased from 8% in 2019 to 5% in 2021. You can go ahead. Areas for improvement at the middle school level, physical activity. So students in general are becoming more sedentary. This is something that is not relegated just to the district. We're seeing this nationally. So again, 68% of middle school students reported not being physically active at least 60 minutes per day on 5 or more of the past days in a week, up from 59% in 2019. That's CDC standards for that age group. And this percentage of students reported spending 3 or more hours per day using a screen jumped up from 36% to 51% over the past couple of years. So a huge increase in the amount of screen time being used. This aligns with research that we're seeing on COVID-19 and shutdowns and reductions in physical activity due to the pandemic. So a lot of this increase or decrease in physical activity, increase in screen time, actually can be and already has been sort of attributed to pandemic level shutdowns. Mental health is also something, a big impact out of COVID is sort of an increase in these troubling mental health indicators. So again, the percentage of students thinking about harming themselves who actually did try to harm themselves increased over the past couple of years. We'll also talk about that at the high school level as well. And then while a lot of drug use, alcohol use is actually low and declining at the middle school level, the one area to be sort of concerned about, or at least keep an eye on, is prescription drug use. So 1 in 10 middle school students, 10%, reported taking a prescription pain medication without a doctor's permission. That's actually double the rate that we saw in 2019, which was 5%. So a big jump up in use of prescription pain medication, not for doctor's purposes. So you can jump ahead to the next slide. At the high school level, a similar story in large part. Again, really low tobacco use rates. Only 2% of high school students reported smoking cigarettes in the past 30 days, which is quite low compared to the national level. One area to watch out for is vaping, which did bump up slightly in 2021 by a percentage point or 2, although it still is lower, I believe, than the national rates overall. So again, not too concerned, but it is the one tobacco product that is actually increasing in youth. Alcohol and drug use continues to decline, which is a great story. 50% of high school students reported using marijuana in prior 30 days. That's down from 1 in 5 or 20% in 2019. And lower rates of violence or bullying. So 6% reported that they'd been in a physical fight on school property, and fewer students reported being bullied either at school or online. Only 9% did that. So both of those were a decline from 2019, which is, again, a positive finding there. Next slide. Much like the middle school level, one of the really negative consequences we're seeing out of COVID is poor mental health at the high school level as well. So 55% of high school students reported that they had recently experienced poor mental health. That is a huge number, much increased from 2019. And then you look at it, 1 in 10, well, more than 1 in 10 or 11% actually reported that they had attempted to commit suicide. So huge numbers directly related to a lot of the issues coming as a result of the pandemic. We're seeing a slight uptick in sort of sexual violence. So sexual dating violence in 2021 increased to 6.4%, up from about 5.4% in 2019. So smaller, obviously, than the mental health increase, but again, because of the seriousness of sexual violence, any increase there is sort of worth noting and keeping an eye on. And then again, I think a COVID impact we're seeing too is actually rates of positive self-perceptions and self-efficacy are actually declining. So there's a series of questions on the survey about how students feel about themselves, how they feel about their future, and by and large, all of those declined in 2021. So again, an example of that is the percentage of students who actually said they felt good about themselves dropped from 59% to 53% over the past couple of years. But then across the board, we saw declines in sort of those positive self-perception indicators. Go to the next slide. So yeah, we can talk a little bit about COVID-19. There was a series of questions that were added specifically regarding the impacts of the pandemic. So these were the questions that were added to the survey. We asked, have the student had poor mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic? Again, 59% of high school students said that they did. Did they have a parent who lost their job during the pandemic? Did they know somebody who was hospitalized or died? Did they receive the vaccine? Had they not taken part in remote learning about once a week or more because of internet issues at their house? And whether they learned less than the last school year as a result of COVID-19. And particularly that last number where you see 73% of high school students actually said they learned less last year as a result of COVID is a huge number. So basically 3 out of every 4 students learned less as a result of the pandemic, which is an indication that, again, a lot of these students are going to be behind academically than where they should be. And coming out of this will be, well, how do we then catch these students back up to where they need to be? This breaks out that same question by various demographic and behavioral indicators. And so this is the percentage of students that said they had poor mental health during COVID-19 by different demographics. So the first one says, 69% of female students said they had poor mental health. And I think one of the interesting findings coming out of this is that we see this is a pandemic that affected everybody. So, nobody got out of COVID-19 in a better place than they started it. It affected everybody, no matter your gender, no matter your race, no matter your academic performance beforehand, et cetera, et cetera. An interesting one is sort of in the middle there, you see the students who describe their grades in school as mostly A's or B's. So these are high academic performing students. Also, 59% of that group said they had poor mental health during COVID-19. So even if you're a great student, you were still impacted by it. And then at the bottom, we see sort of an interesting overlap between use of different types of substances and the relationship between poor mental health. So, and those are even higher. So if you vaped, if you drink alcohol, if you use marijuana, those mental health issues are even worse overall by a little bit. You think you can skip, you can skip that one for time and go on to the next one as well. This is the percentage of students who said they learned less last school year by those same breakouts. And again, an interesting thing here is you see the same story again, even more so, right? So all students, regardless of who you were, your demographics, et cetera, you were impacted, you learned less last year as a result of COVID-19. And again, that included students who described their grades in school as mostly A's or B's, so high academic performing students. But again, regardless of your race, your gender, et cetera, you were impacted by this pandemic. Skip one more ahead. The final set of analysis that we did, at least for this initial cut of sort of the presentation of the data, is a look at the academic performance of students by health behaviors, which is an important correlation I think we can look at. And it has sort of long-lasting impacts in terms of the types of programs and policies that you have at the district and state and national level. But across the top of the table is self-rated. Describe their own grades as mostly A's, B's, C's, D's, or F's. And the rows indicate indicators, so whether the student actually did certain things. And what you can see here in the boxes, those that are highlighted in light green actually represent areas where those rates are better than the overall. So students are doing a little bit better than the average. And the ones highlighted in light pink are where students are actually doing worse overall. And pretty much across the board, you can see that tight correlation between academic performance and youth health behaviors and indicators. So for example, if we look at recently used an electronic vapor product, 6% of students with mostly A's said they recently vaped, compared to 20% of those with D's and 25% of those who reported the grades as F's. So again, really strong correlation between these two factors here. And again, even spills into things like mental health. When you look at those who seriously considered attempting suicide, 11% of those students said they had mostly A's, compared to 28% of mostly D's and 37% of students who said they were mostly get F's in school. So again, scary that that's high overall in and of itself, but a strong correlation between academic performance as well. Go ahead to the next slide. Similar story here by just a different academic variable. It's whether they actually students paid attention in class. Again, this is self-reported by the student. And what we can see is basically across the board, if a student felt that they weren't really paying attention in class, they had significantly worse health behaviors as a result of that as well. You can jump ahead one more. Interesting one, whether they felt they would graduate from high school, yes or no. It tells a very similar story, but overall you can see, again, those students who didn't feel like they were going to graduate from high school, significantly worse rates of substances. They were more likely to be bullied overall, higher rates of sexual activity, worse mental health conditions, and the bottom one, worse self-perception about themselves, worse self-efficacy as well. So again, start to show the link, not just between grades and health behaviors, but actually graduation rate as well, in linking those two things. Go ahead again. One more slide. Now I think this is the last slide for you. So this shows the link again between academic performance and adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And so ACEs were asked in the survey with a series of 10 different questions about their childhood experiences with family issues, neighborhood issues, poverty, things like that, all which have shown in the literature to actually impact a host of things as these children become adults. And what we see here too is a strong link between these ACEs and ultimate academic performance. So again, if you look at that first one, have they seen somebody get shot, stabbed, or beaten in the neighborhood? Those students who self-reported their grades as mostly A's, said 24% of those students said that they had seen that in their neighborhood, compared to 44% of those saying they got mostly D's and 53% of those getting mostly F's. So again, we could say, well, 30%, that's too high overall as it is, but also once you get into those with lower academic performance, it's extraordinarily high overall. We also see, the same thing across the board, but issues of poverty, whether they didn't have money to eat, things like that, and whether they lived with somebody who was incarcerated, served time in jail, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the interesting questions coming out of this, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg thing, right? Which comes first? Is it academic performance leads to bad health behaviors? Is it bad health behaviors lead to bad academic performance? How linked are these two things in and of themselves? But ultimately, I think a lot of the things start with ACEs, right? So it starts with the foundation that you have, in your home, with your family. And it's necessary really to have those supports with parents, with guardians, with a good neighborhood, with basic levels of being able to afford food and things like that, that really lead, I think, both ultimately to these health behaviors down the road, as well as better academic performance as well. So again, things that are really important, that we make sure that we have, provide this support to students as best we can to really set them up to succeed as they grow, both in their educational career, but also as adults as well. So, and again, that's a really high, we're talking about a really 30,000 level foot view of the data that we saw here today. There's a ton more information. Again, part of the ongoing process that Mai will talk about is how all of the ways that this data will be used and packaged and provided both to schools and others in administration to really help move forward and push a lot of these initiatives forward. So again, I want to thank you for the time, and stick around certainly for any questions if they come up.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you for your team. I really enjoyed working with you to kind of get this data out there. Before we move on to questions, as Dr. Brown mentioned, I just wanted to share some preliminary plans on what we plan to do with the data. Currently, tomorrow we will be getting out the school level reports to all the secondary school principals to share with their MTSS wellness teams, and we will work with their teams to review that specific data, create action plans to address some of the gaps, because we know that every school is unique, and so what might be a priority or an area of improvement in one school might be different in another school. So our team will work with the schools to assess their data, to identify those gaps, and to create an action plan to support them. We'll mirror kind of a similar process with our whole school, whole community, whole child WISC subcommittees, where we'll have Patrick's team out and kind of do a similar presentation and have really rich discussion on what the data says, and try to identify some of those gaps. So for example, I know one of the data points is because of COVID, our students haven't been going to the dentist. So we've already had discussions with community partners to get the oral health committee and getting our partners into our schools to provide cleanings and follow-ups for our students. So we'll be working with the WISC subcommittees to take a look at the data and to address some of those areas and implement programming to specifically target those areas of improvement. And then lastly, we've started to use a lot of the American Rescue Plan dollars to help support in these areas. So as Patrick mentioned, and as we all know, the mental health of our students has really suffered during the pandemic. So using the American Rescue Plan dollars to purchase a social emotional curriculum, to do an SEL screener, a universal screener district-wide, purchase materials for common corners in classrooms, working on the physical aspects of the school, purchasing water refill stations, and having wellness themed field trips for our students are some of the things that align to the gaps that are addressed that Patrick mentioned, but we'll be working on this through a collaborative approach. It's not just the Division of Student Support Services, not just our department, it's input from all of our stakeholders. So in conjunction with the YRBS analysis and implementing the district wellness policy to fidelity, working with our stakeholders, we hope to see improvements in those areas outlined in this year's YRBS analysis.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, everyone, for the presentation. I am going to turn it over to my board colleagues to ask any questions, make any comments they might have. We'll start with those that are here at City Hall. Ms. Belton-Cotman.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. You said that you were going to implement our district wellness plan. Are there any action steps associated with that, since one of the concerns is that we have not been able to get it up out and doing it across the district? So just trying to figure out, what does implement the wellness plan mean from our perspective?
Yeah, so for implementing the wellness policy, we work with our community-based organizations and our schools. Our coaches, our MTSS coaches, have started going out to the schools to work with the building administrators to get their teams up and running again. The American Rescue Plan dollars has money allocated for us to meet with our teams on every other Saturday. We're planning every other month, one Saturday a month, to do some professional development, some trainings on how to run a fully functioning wellness teams, how to use the data to drive actions. So we're doing some professional developments to revamp those school-based wellness teams. At the district level, we are setting up meetings for the WISC subcommittees to meet to look at the data, to assess where we are with implementation of the wellness policy, and then create action plans together to move forward with the wellness policy and using the data to drive those programs.
Okay, because it's been 11 years, I think, that we've had a wellness policy in effect. And do we have any, anything that we can stand on as far as building on it? Because I don't ever remember it being fully implemented prior to COVID.
It's been a process. The policy itself is a very well-written policy, and now we're moving from what's written to monitoring what we want to do. So it's going to be a process that's always fluid and always moving, because the dynamics of our society, the dynamics of our school are always changing.
And if I could, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just going to add to that as well. And as far as really trying to get it up and running in the buildings to full capacity, we have, as Mai said, that we do have MTSS coaches assigned to each building, and we're identifying designees who we can really work with to get it launched. And we're really trying to have an approach where we don't have a number of individual teams, that we're collapsing all of those individual teams and making it into one wellness team that addresses various areas: academic, social, emotional, all of that, because that way it doesn't seem so overwhelming at the building level, because you have one primary team that has a laser focused view on the areas. So we definitely are working on that, and our goal is to make sure that that is fully operational prior to the end of the school year, with the constant support and really hearing from the buildings and hearing from the students. And we're really trying to empower the student this year. We have our Inter-High Student Council that we have identified student ambassadors, health ambassadors, to really lead a lot of this work, and also using our after school time to be able to do that, the extended learning time, to utilize those efforts as well. So thank you for that. And yes, that's the primary goal of ours.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. I guess from my perspective, what I sort of want to see more of is the resources making it to the children versus the adults receiving additional money for meetings and things like that, or professional development. I don't necessarily feel that the children always benefit to the same degree that the adults benefit from the resources that I receive. And so for me, when you say that you're going to be collapsing the different areas that they've been concentrating on, how do we ensure that we don't miss out on something? How do we make sure that something's not missed? Let's take McKinney-Vento, for example. I went there and I visited, I did my rounds today. I went to McKinney-Vento, and you know McKinney-Vento is very dear to my heart. It's something that I'm gonna continue to be dear to my heart. And I always go there almost every September, if I can remember. I've been there looking to see what do we have for McKinney-Vento children. And I was a little disappointed today, I'll be honest with you, because normally I fully packed and everything, and they weren't there. So I don't have a problem going out to get book bags or whatever, but I just want to make sure that the most vulnerable students in this district are taken care of first. And that's certainly are those. And so I was going to talk with the superintendent offline about that, but I did go to registration today, and there were a lot of parents who were waiting to be serviced, but the staff was working, and then I'm told that civil service is holding us up again. And so I'm like, what can I do to help? So if civil service is holding us back, how do I help? Do we contact the mayor? Who do we contact so that our parents are, that the resources are flowing to the parents and the children as much as possible? So I really want you guys to focus in on that, because that's what I'm targeting. at that. And I do want some book bags sent over to McKinney-Vento ASAP because I didn't see any supplies in the book bags.
Okay, you know, I'm gonna follow up because I know that I talked to the director about that and they were filling up the book bag. So I'm gonna find out, maybe they delivered them, hopefully, but I'm definitely going to follow up and I
think the teacher's desk, he'll give us stuff. He'll give us stuff.
Yeah, no, they have.
Arlene has, I think Burgard has over 100 excess book bags sitting there. I have 2 that someone gave me that I'll be happy to share. But I just need to know that the commitment is there to make sure that those that need the resources the most are receiving them first. And that's my commitment to our community. And so I just want to share that. The only other question I have after that is that where is the information about the detailed information? Is the board going to get a complete report? We will get a complete report?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to make sure you have the data first before we make this public. Yes.
Yeah, I want to make sure because I have my other 2, and I trust I really value those reports, and so I want to make sure that they are there. Okay, thank you for the work that you're doing on this. I hope we can do smaller surveys to target additional needs, maybe within our district. And once we identify how do we make the wellness policy work? Can we work with our parent groups to move it to the next level or things like that? I just want to make sure that that we provide the needs of our children after COVID and always before, but that there's major issues there. And so I want to make sure. My understanding is that we can expect by January on a national level that homelessness will by and large quadruple based on the amount of people that are being evicted and and so we need to gear up and make sure that we're focusing in on the children that need it the most. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, board member. If I can just interject for 1 second, I want to thank you, board member Cotman. We do know that McKinney-Vento is very, very near and dear to your heart. I think with respect to this work is going to help us on a large scale, district-wide, but it's also going to help us, I think, you know, in the buildings. As a former principal, certainly I remember having multiple teams in my school. You have a leadership team, you may have a curriculum team. And I think the goal, one of the first goals is for our team to work with each building so that they have that comprehensive wellness team operating in their schools that includes various stakeholders, community partners, whoever their building liaisons are, everyone from the custodial staff, clerical staff, nurses, teachers. So we're trying to, you know, get that infrastructure set up so that we are working district-wide to make sure that our most vulnerable populations district-wide, so that when parents come over to central registration, if they are experiencing temporary homelessness, we want to have everything we can over there for them to have their needs met at that one-stop shop. But then when they get to the buildings, to further, you know, ensure that their needs are met.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Thank you.
President Petrucci.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. And thank you, everyone that worked on the Youth Risk Survey. This is some very important data that's going to help us make effective policy, hopefully, going forward. One thing I know that the board has asked repeatedly over the last few youth risk surveys was questions, or where there could be included questions about human trafficking. I was wondering if there have been any, if this was added to this year's survey, because it wasn't in the presentation. Were there any questions about human trafficking among our students or about our students in the survey?
No, that was discussed with the YRBS advisory board, and because the Youth Risk Behavior Survey is an anonymous survey, we felt that to ask human trafficking questions without being able to help support students that may be involved in that trafficking would not be an appropriate time or place to ask that. The other thing with the 2021 YRBS is that we really didn't make too many changes to 2019 so that we could see the changes between the 2 years. But we are looking to modify it for 2023 and are open to suggestions and working with experts in the area of human sex trafficking, so that, you know, if there is a way that we can add it, but also be supportive of our students, we'd certainly be.
So we've been identified as a community that has a high level of human trafficking. How do you manage the problem if you can identify the parameters? I mean, it's just, I find it a little, particularly because we've asked repeatedly, and you know, I wish I would have known prior to that this wasn't going to be part of the survey, because we have repeatedly, and we've had presentations at the board table about this. I'm just.
Could this be something
that, I think for this particular YRBS survey administration, we were trying to compare prior to COVID to post-COVID. And so we tried to keep many of the questions the same, but I do know that we did receive requests from various entities to include some questions. We're in a different space with regard to human trafficking than even where we were last year. So I believe that that is something we'll be able to revisit for next year's administration. But we tried to keep 2021 very similar to 2019 so that we could make some comparisons.
Right. But eventually this needs to be incorporated. I realize the unique era that we're in coming out of COVID, but you know, again, it is something that is impacting families in the Buffalo Public Schools, tragically, sadly. So I know that's been a priority for myself and many of my fellow board members.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think moving forward that the board should have a say in the questions, because my understanding, and I started working that youth survey when it first came out, is that Buffalo can put additional questions and have them pulled out. In other words, we could have had that put in there. So the decisions that are being made about that survey, it needs to come before the board, the final group of questions, because we need to make sure that it's meeting our needs, okay? We're not gonna know that we have major trafficking going on in this district, and we're not gonna find out how much it's impacting our children. So that might be one of your smaller surveys that you do until you do the other one. But there's a couple of other things that I'd like to see on there also, and I think we can talk about it, that needs to be surveyed for our children. But we were clear at this table what we wanted. And I don't know how it didn't make it to it, but of course it was before your leadership, Superintendent Williams. But as I told you before, the staff needs to understand that the board, when they ask for something, they really do want it. And this was, I was hoping that it was in here, because it's something that I'm watching nationally. I've attended seminars virtually out of Texas, out of New York City, and Buffalo is a primary target area for a lot of things, and we've got to capture that. And we have to know who our customers are, and we're losing young ladies, and they're disappearing off the planet, and we need to know what's going on in our community. So, Mr. Caresses, would you help us with that, please? Because we need you to advocate for us too with that. If the board asks for certain things, we sort of really want them. We want to see them, okay? Thank you.
President Petrucci, anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you for your hard work. This is really great data.
All right, I'll turn to our virtual board members. I see Ms. Woods there. Are you still with us, Ms. Woods?
And Dr. Rivera just had to sign off. She
signed off. Dr. Rivera's not there either? Okay. So that leaves just me.
Wait a minute, you've been on a roll.
I'll go easy.
Larry had his meetings this morning.
So I appreciated the cross analysis. I thought that was, you kind of predict, I think, correlations, and it was very clear. High ACEs, low self-perception, high mental health needs, low grades, low expectations to graduate, high problematic behavior, risky behavior. Clear synergy between all of those. You mentioned that there's going to be school reports that are coming out tomorrow, I believe, which I hope will have access to view as well. We had identified schools, I think it was around the McKinley incident last year, where we really felt as if Suspensions were up, violence was up, police calls were up. I'm wondering if we have done a correlation between with the youth risk behavior survey by school and the warning, the red flag areas from the survey, and if it correlates with suspension rates, violence, and police calls from those schools.
No,
I may be able
that's,
to
oh, go
speak
ahead.
to- Yeah, I think I can speak to a little bit of this. I was not the analyst working on the project, but I believe we did a similar analysis where we looked at, I think specifically suspensions. So we were able to actually pull in some of the administrative data that's available and correlate that with information from the YRBS survey. And we saw very much the same story that we presented here today. So again, there was a high correlation between those suspension rates at the individual school level and the associated academic performance indicators, as well as those other indicators as well. So, so I think the answer to that is yes. That is also very true at the school level.
And then, so along those lines for our staff, equity is a huge priority. I know, Dr. Williams, it's a huge priority for you. We kind of identified schools we felt needed extra support. We directed more support in our budget towards those schools. And I'm just wondering if there is a correlation between data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, suspensions, violence, police calls, and where we're directing more social emotional support, community-based support, and if there's any gaps there, if we're missing a school or two, or we're not giving them enough. So it's not really a question to answer now, but I think something we should look at to make sure we're equitably addressing the needs of our schools and students.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how we intend to use the data that we have, obtained from this survey, and looking at, not only are there gaps currently, but if there are gaps, we were able to secure a grant for Burgard High School that dealt with mental illness using, I believe it was the 2017 YRBS. And so, we will certainly be looking for gaps, and then we will be looking at funding streams to support, closing those gaps. Funding streams, partnerships, the school-based budgeting piece and how that happens, and do we need to reallocate resources so that we're making sure that the needs of students at school A are met, as opposed to just equally giving everybody the same thing.
That's right. And my last question, just so I'm clear for confirmation, I thought I read 30% of those surveyed, and I believe it's middle and high school, have seen someone shot, stabbed, or beaten in their neighborhood. Is that accurate?
That is correct. It might be at the high school level specifically, but yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. I think that concludes our questions. Thank you to our staff. Thank you, Mr. Madden, for joining us and giving us your analysis. Dr. Williams, any closing thoughts before we close up our Educational Support Committee?
No, I do want to thank the team. I certainly want to thank Mr. Madden for the work that he did. It's a lot of work. This is a huge endeavor in making sure that, all of our students, I believe in grades 6 through 12, participate in this, and just getting them situated in front of a computer to answer 150 questions and to take the questions seriously, and then disaggregating it all. And then that's when the real work begins for the team, in making sure, that we are implementing with fidelity what the survey is telling us needs to be implemented. So the team right now is in the throes of the real work and peeling layers and making sure that, we use this data moving forward to meet the needs of our students. And so, the board can expect to receive copies of what the data shares. Is it tomorrow, Dr. Brown, or will it be by Friday that the board will get access to the survey? You're ready? Okay. All right.
Yes,
Thank
definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's a lot of data, a lot.
All right, that concludes our educational support work session. I will now turn it over to Ms. Belton Cotman, who is going to chair our student achievement work session in substitute of Dr. Kathy Evans-Brown, who is not here.
Thank you.
Share table.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I am filling in for Dr. Kathy Evans-Brown, who is the chairperson of this Student Achievement Committee. We will start by hearing from our superintendent, and we have our chief academic officer here this evening, Mrs. Ann Betticelli. So Dr. Tanja Williams, superintendent of Buffalo Public Schools.
Thank you so much. Board Member Cotman, who is sitting in for Chair Dr. Evans-Brown. So one of the first things that, I met with Chief Botticelli about was the need for us to have a plan that really focused on student outcomes, a plan that talked about student needs, all students, including those students that have learning needs, those students who may be English language learners, and making sure that all have access to a standards-based, culturally and linguistically responsive curriculum that, could garner high academic achievement. And so I'm very proud of the work that she and her team, along with Dr. Morrell and her team, and Dr. Brown and her team, because we also wanted to make sure that the socio-emotional learning needs of students would be met in this plan also. And it is aligned directly to the strategic plan that we have in place. So I want to give kudos to the team that came up in a very short period of time with the creation of this student success plan. It's a 3-year plan, and I believe it's going to be a tremendous game changer for our schools. It's going to help our principals, our directors and supervisors, so that they know as they're visiting schools and supporting schools specifically where children need to be, what they should know. All of those pieces will be addressed. So I'll turn things over to Chief Botticelli.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I am going to speak tonight to our student success plan, and Dr. Williams is correct. One of the first things she charged me with when she came on board as superintendent was to make sure that we had an academic plan.
Is your mic on, Ann?
Oh, it says it's on?
Okay.
To make sure that we had an academic plan that addressed the needs of all of our students. So we pulled together committees to complete this work. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the final product, but I want you to know we had input from parent groups, from the BTF, from the BCSA, from our central office staff, and this is a living document. So we recognize that there is a constant need to update, to revise, to address gaps that are identified. So we will be revisiting this quarterly with different committees, making sure that we have accounted for any need that is arising at the school level, anything that comes down from the state, et cetera. So the committees will be active. And actually, I'm still meeting with the parent committee because we are going to be taking this written document and turning it into something that lives on our website and is accessible to all the community. So the document itself will be attached to the website, but the parents are helping me design a parent-friendly, community-friendly set of pages so that everybody has access to the highlights of the plan. So that is a work in progress.
User-friendly, huh?
User-friendly is the goal. I have to say, this is a dense plan designed for helping schools understand instructional expectations. So we want to make sure when we bring it to the website that it's accessible to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for thinking that out.
So first I just want to talk a little bit about our purpose. I'm going to talk in another minute about our actual instructional theory of action, but we wanted to make sure that was clearly established so that all stakeholders were aware.
We wanted to inform all of our stakeholders of the current initiatives and any upcoming initiatives, so I'll draw your attention to a few of those tonight. We also thought it was really important to create a narrative that connected our different initiatives. Sometimes it might feel to someone like we have this going on and we have that going on, and they might not see how they all interweave. So we wanted to make sure that this document was something that was accessible and could help people see how all of our work is connected. And then we wanted just to make sure we had a shared language so that when we reference things, we're all using common terms and no one is confused by what the expectations are. So again, it is a living document. We will continue to revisit it. And I'll just draw your attention, the very last sentence mentions that this is connected to Strategic Plan Commitment 1.4, so Goal 1. And I believe that is because this plan was the actual commitment from the superintendent. So she said, as part of her first goal, that we would have an academic plan, and so this is the product. So our instructional theory of action is built around the CRS principles that the state has showcased. So the Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework that's hosted by the state, and also came out of the work of the Buffalo Public Schools. So we believe that we will have academic success for our students. We will help them be socially and emotionally successful over time if we ensure a welcoming and affirming environment, if we hold high expectations and provide rigorous instruction in our classrooms, if we provide inclusive curriculum and assessments, and we provide ongoing professional learning opportunities to make sure that our staff is able to support our students in the way that they need. So again, this connects back to the 4 principles from the State Education Department. It also connects back to the superintendent's plan. So moving to the next level, one voice, one mission, one vision, it's directly connected to the work of academics, the work of instruction, the work in our schools that you'll see outlined in this plan. So her plan itself is not only tied to this plan, but it informed this plan. So she had 5 goals: eliminating achievement and opportunity gaps, which you will hopefully see outlined very clearly in the plan; access to educational excellence and accelerated learning, which is also very clearly outlined in the plan; prioritizing safety, security, and wellness. And again, you'll see references throughout to how we help our students feel safe and secure and cared for in our schools; amplifying all voices and cultivating trust and activating partnerships. So you'll see throughout the plan that we continue to tie these ideas back into our academics. And she also had 3 big rocks: literacy, learning, and leadership, which I hope you will see very clearly outlined in the plan. So I'm just going to briefly mention our instructional priorities. So we start with a culture of learning that needs to be established in every classroom. So we have certain expectations outlined for our staff about what that looks like and how that can support a welcoming and affirming environment for our students. So we know not only does the classroom have to be well managed, but it has to be welcoming. So it's really important that our staff understands what it means to help students have a sense of belonging in the classroom, how to see themselves in the classroom, how to feel that they are part of the classroom. So that is outlined in our culture of learning. The other instructional priorities focus on specific strategies for teachers in the classroom related to literacy across all content areas and mathematics. We've developed coaching tools to support the implementation of this initiative, and we've worked with principals on a continuous improvement cycle using that data that they collect to improve. Again, this connects back to Strategic Plan Goal 2, commitments 2.2 and 2.3 from the superintendent's plan. I'm going to walk you through a little bit later our table of contents. So this plan delineates instructional expectations as well as supports and services to assist schools in meeting those expectations. So this is just a snapshot of what is available to you. So once you get past our introduction, you'll see our priorities clearly outlined. You'll see what it looks like in the early learning stages, what it looks like in the elementary stages, K-2 and 3 to 6, what it looks like in our middle school program, and what it looks like in our high school program. And then after that, you will see all the supports and services that the district is able to provide to help schools achieve our goals. This is just a quick snapshot, and I'm going to take you into the live document, but I just wanted to show you. So each department by grade band has outlined the main ideas behind their work in a narrative form. And then there is a chart that follows with clear expectations. It outlines what curriculum would look like, what materials should be used, what assessment takes place in that classroom, what it looks like to differentiate, to accelerate. So you'll see this for every curriculum area from K to 12. And I was asked to speak a little bit to some of the interventions we're putting in place because we know, as we talked about in our other committee, there's been a lot of struggle for certain students to come back into the school community, to feel like they are part of the community, and to achieve academically. So some of the things we have in place in terms of time and opportunity would be after-school programming, summer programming, response to intervention, and academic intervention services. During those time periods, you might see students using First in Math, which is new, it came from State Ed, and it focuses on fluency. It's an online intervention program. We just recently trained our staff. IXL is new. It's a test that we use 3 times throughout the year to capture a snapshot, a diagnostic snapshot of where our students are in mathematics and English, grades 9 and 12. But one of the benefits of this program is that it also provides academic intervention based on that data. So there are online opportunities for students whose diagnostic results point them in a certain direction. The teacher can also assign on-grade level work using IXL, so there's 2 ways they can use that tool. MobiMax has both mathematics and literacy intervention opportunities. It is also diagnostic, and like IXL, it also allows teachers to assign activities to the students. That's used primarily at grades K to 9. For 9th graders, it's pre-algebraic skills. We have corrective reading and reading mastery, which are interventions at our 3rd tier for RTI. Orton-Gillingham, we just started the training last year. We're very excited about this intervention. It's a very intensive 5-day training. We have over 200 some teachers that have gone through it to date. We're providing that training to all of our K-8 special education staff, our K-8 E&L teachers, our reading teachers, our literacy coaches, and this year we're offering it to all of our kindergarten teachers in the hopes that we can cut off some of the need for intervention by offering it early in kindergarten. We always have talked in the past about Lexia Core 5 and Power Up, which are interventions for literacy. But recently we've added Lexia English for our E&L students and iStation Espanol for our bilingual program. So those are just some of the many interventions we have in place. And I know earlier they were referencing we have a new screener that we're using for behavior as well. So that data will also help to inform what we do moving forward. So we have a number of new and expanded initiatives that you'll see highlighted in the document. So we started using Haggerty in our K-2 classrooms recently. It will be completely replacing the Journeys phonemic awareness program right now, and we're adding it to pre-K. So the hopes would be that by starting it as early as possible, students develop a solid foundation in phonemic awareness as well. We've added Raising a Reader to kindergarten. In the past, we only had it in pre-K. So Raising a Reader is one of those fantastic programs that involves all the adults in a child's life. So they bring home backpacks of books each week, and we give the families strategies to read with their students and to engage their students in literacy. So each week they have new books, and we work with the families so that they can support their children and ask them questions and help engage them in literature. We've added the Rising Voices Library thanks to the CLRI department. So this is one of the many ways that we can help our students see themselves represented in our curriculum. So those read-alouds have been fused across the curricula grades K to 5. So you'll see them in art, you'll see them in music, you'll see them in reading, you'll see them in social studies. So it's just another opportunity to improve our curriculum. Again, I mentioned iStation Espanol and Lexia or in Gillingham. We also have a new training this year for grades 3 to 6. So we will be working with our teachers to infuse an Orton-Gillingham-based methodology in vocabulary. So we're taking what the Orton-Gillingham methodology that currently applies to more of the decoding aspect and applying it to vocabulary. So we're focusing on prefixes, suffixes, roots in a much more hands-on kind of environment, and they'll have materials to accompany it. So all the teachers in grades 3 to 6 will receive that training over the next 2 years. We're moving to all ELA modules in grade 6. So I just listed out a couple. Like Hidden Figures will be one of our new books. Flush, Dragon Wings. So those are some of the texts coming to grade 6 when in the past we had used Journeys. And we're also adding Code Talkers to grade 8 this year. I mentioned IXL. We're very excited that we'll be partnering with WASED. So K to 12, there will be available WASED activities for our students to engage them in hands-on STEM. This year is our Seal of Civic Readiness initiative come to fruition. We did briefly pilot it, but now we are going full force. So Mr. Brandy, our Director of Social Studies, will be meeting with each high school to talk to them about how to form a committee and what that looks like. Eventually, it becomes a 4+1 pathway opportunity for students coming toward graduation. So the Seal of Civic Readiness is very exciting. It's a very project-based type of opportunity for students, and that can count toward their graduation again. We have a number of new textbooks this year. I'll just specifically talk about Earth and Space Science because I sat through the training with some of the teachers. Really exciting. It takes our curriculum to a whole new level. So it's no longer Earth Science, it's Earth and Space Science. They have a very in-depth program with textbooks, but also online opportunities, and it's very engaging, hands-on. I can't even tell you how many opportunities for labs embedded in the program. So teachers were very giddy because they get to pick which labs they're going to be exposing the kids to. They're very excited. So that is one of our newer ones. In science, the standards are being phased in, but we have a very engaged, active director of science, Tatiana Merrick, and she has actually moved the district ahead. So we are full force into the new standards, with the caveat that certain things from the old standards still need to be taught for the Regents exam purposes. But in general, we have moved forward with the standard application. And then we have a number of new courses. We have a study skills course that we're piloting right now at several schools. So that will help students be better prepared for assessments and for their class, how to take notes, that type of thing. A public speaking course, which is a dual credit, I believe, with ECC. We're developing the Indigenous Tribes of New York State course, which will be an elective offering. We have a new climate science elective offering and a data science and math course. So those are just some of the things on the horizon. And I did mention that we have the behavioral screener. I heard that in the previous session they talked about the calming corners that are coming, the sensory kits that are going into our special education and self-contained classrooms. So we have a lot of new initiatives, not to mention all the things that were already in place and we're maintaining. So I just wanted you to have a little snapshot of some of the things that are in the plan and are delineated. And if you see anything as we come across it that you wish had a more clear explanation, let us know. Like I said, it's a living document, so we're happy to update. So with that being said, I'm going to leave the PowerPoint and go into the document just to give you a quick snapshot. Okay, so one of the nice things about this plan, and I'm going to give a lot of credit here to one of our ITCs, Joe Malfisi, is that a lot of things in here are hyperlinked. So even though it's a huge document, I think it's about 150 pages, you do not have to scroll through all those pages to get to the section that you want because most things are hyperlinked. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So everything in the table of contents, for example, is hyperlinked. So I'm going to quickly take you to our instructional priorities section. Again, connected to goal number 2 from the Superintendent's Strategic Plan. So I mentioned earlier our culture of learning. So that is the first of our priorities. It crosses all grade levels. But here's a quick snapshot of what we mean by that. And then there are links to other parts of the plan so that you can see our coaching tools, you can see some of the expectations we've laid out for teachers. So if I went here, it would take me to the actual instructional priorities, and the coaching tools are linked at the bottom of the page. So we wanted to make sure, this was feedback from our principals, they wanted to make sure it was kind of a one-stop shop. Anything that they thought was important, they wanted it to be hyperlinked for their use so they could direct teachers to the one spot and they could easily get to our other sections. At the the bottom of each page is a little arrow, which will take me right back to the table of contents. So again, I don't have to scroll through everything. So every single page will take you back to the original. I wanted to point out a few of the highlights. So pre-kindergarten is one of our sections in early learning. Just notice that the four principles I mentioned are the framework for the plan. So for every section, every main section, you'll see welcoming and affirming environment and what we do to make our environment welcoming and affirming. So for example, in pre-K, we talk about some of the parent events. We talk about the Raising a Reader. There's actually a link here to the parent handbook for pre-K, if parents want to access that. The next section would be high expectations and rigorous instruction. So how does pre-K, how does it have high expectations for students, and what does that rigorous instruction look like? In this case, they talk about developmentally appropriate program, or DAP program. So a lot of that is outlined by the state, what they expect from our pre-K classrooms, but you can see that they are all center-based, and there's an explanation of what that means. Again, there's handbooks for our teaching assistants and our teachers in pre-K. We talk about the inclusive curriculum and assessment for pre-K, so we'll mention Ages and Stages, which is one of our behavioral screening tools. The Second Step program, which is an SEL curriculum that we use in pre-K, and I think they might have mentioned that a little bit earlier. We have a computer-based assessment in pre-K called iStation. And we have pre-K checklists for parents, so they have a sense of where their students are. And then we also use the Eckert scale to rate our classrooms to make sure that they are living up to that developmentally appropriate programming expectation. We have ongoing professional learning, and our pre-K department does a fantastic job training their staff. They include the teaching assistants in everything that they do so that everyone is on the same page in the classroom. And then you can see I referenced that we have a chart with each section. So you can see here, this is the instructional guidance for our UPK program. So to the left, the standards are listed in the 5 domains for the pre-K classroom. To the right, the materials that our teachers use. The assessments that we use in pre-K, and then how we differentiate in pre-K. So that is largely focused on our particular learning areas. So I will quickly show you elementary education as well. Again, this one is aligned to Plan Goal number 2 and Commitment 2.5. So in elementary ed, there's a certain, no matter what classroom you're in, there are some basic expectations. So in terms of a welcoming and affirming classroom environment, especially in literacy and mathematics, we have a 21-day planner that we ask our teachers to use. So it shows our students, this is the setup of the classroom. These are the expectations for each learning area. So when you are operating independently at this learning area, here's what it looks like, and let me model that for you, and now let's practice. The goal at the end of the day is that the students can do work without having to disturb the teacher when the teacher is working with another small group. We have restorative or community building circles in our elementary classrooms, so that generally takes place in the morning. And if you wanted a deeper explanation, there's a hyperlink here to our Office of School Planning. In terms of expectations, again, we always connect back to our instructional priorities. So what does that look like in the classroom? We've also created look for documents. So not only can you see what the expectation is, but you can see examples of what it might look like in your classroom. We follow a gradual release of responsibility model, meaning that most of the time, especially when you're introducing something in whole group, our teachers do whole group instruction. They model it for the students. They might conduct a think aloud so the students can hear how an expert would think about something. Then they give the students opportunities to practice with corrective feedback all along. And then eventually the students transition to independent learning. So we don't hold them with us all the time. It's not constant modeling from the teacher. It's that gradual release so students become more and more self-sufficient. But at times an inquiry-based approach may be more appropriate. For example, in many of our social studies lessons, we ask students to engage with primary sources. In science classes, you may be working with a lab. So depending on the particular lesson, we might be asking you to follow an inquiry-based approach. In every classroom, the expectation is differentiation, because we know that we have heterogeneous classrooms and all the students are not at the same place academically, or emotionally, or behaviorally, right? So teachers are expected to differentiate, and we try to provide as much training as they need, as much support as they need, but that is the expectation. One of the ways they do that in elementary is teacher-led small group. So teachers will look at their data and then pull students who might have the same need, pull them together. Either they're accelerating because the students are all pretty advanced, or they might need to remediate in particular areas, so they intervene with the kids, while other students might be at learning areas, which is why we have the 21-day planner to make sure kids know how to operate when they're working in lab. We don't call technology a learning area, but we do have a lot of technology platforms, so many students or many teachers make use of those as well. And then if you clicked on some of these links, it would take you to different guidance documents for teachers and opportunities and resources that they can use as they plan for instruction. We also talk about a multilingual classroom ecology. So that is guidance for teachers about what it means to make your students feel like they are part of your class and to make sure that they are fully engaged in the curriculum initiatives. So there's an entire document if I took you there. Again, we introduced the Rising Voices collection this year through CLRI office, so those have been embedded in our curriculum. Ongoing professional learning, teachers have grade level meetings at the elementary. Those are scheduled regularly into instruction. So it's an expectation that teachers get together. It's an expectation that the administration and the coach are planning and leading those meetings. Coaching is a very important initiative in the district. So all these things should be taking place at the elementary level. And then I just wanted to, I'm not going to go in too much detail here, but I just wanted to show you, for example, this is K2 literacy. It's a brief explanation of what instruction should look like in the K2 classroom, a focus on foundational skills. What does it look like to teach children to decode? What are our expectations? Making that homeschool connection, screening students for appropriate needs, and providing appropriate professional development. And then there would be the associated chart for K2 literacy. So all of our academic sections are set up that way. So that was K2 elementary. We have the same situation for middle school. So there would be an introduction for what middle school looks like and then by subject. Same for high school. I'm going to quickly take you to high school. We added a few extra things there. For example, we explain our advanced placement and dual credit initiative. So how does that fit into the CRS principles? Specifically, it fits under high expectations and rigorous instruction. So you can go to our course descriptions for every subject, both for dual enrollment as well as AP. College Board has specific offerings. We're looking to pilot the new African American Studies course, so we put the application in at their request. So we're hopeful that we'll have that in 23-24. We partner with a number of local colleges to offer dual credit programming. So just some of them, Hilbert, Buff State, Alfred State, Niagara, ECC. So we've got a number of opportunities for students to get college credits while they're taking the course in their high school classroom. In terms of inclusive curriculum and assessments, we partner with equal opportunity schools at many of our high schools. The goal there is to increase enrollment of typically underserved students in those courses. So we have seen a steady increase over the years, the number of courses that are offered as well as the number of diverse students enrolled in our courses. So that will continue to be a focus for us. We also offer the college transition course, which was created in partnership with some of the local colleges and universities. So that course works with students to basically help them transition to high school or to college. What would it look like when you're in college? What things do you need to do? How do you budget your time? How do you budget your resources to make sure that you're successful? And then when they go to some of the colleges, they'll have the second part of that course. So I won't go into more detail here. You can obviously take some time and look this over, and feel free to please ask me any questions you may have. But we do have the supports and services section, so I'll just quickly take you to multilingual. So that is aligned to CR Part 154, which guides all the work that we do in the district in terms of multilingual education. It's also aligned to the blueprint for English language learners and the CRS framework. So we talk a little bit about the language services that we offer, for example, deaf access, talking points, language line. Here's some resources for teachers as they're trying to engage with those opportunities. We have multilingual academic coaches through Journey's End who go into our classrooms and support students, but they also work with families to make sure they understand the central registration process and what it looks like to navigate your way through BPS. We have a strong bilingual program, and we actually have a new director and supervisor this year, so it's really exciting. They're very engaged. They're working with our schools to make sure our language allocation policies are correct and are being implemented appropriately. Obviously, we have ENL programming, which is guided by NISATEL and NISA scores. And then we have a lot of PD. There's actually a requirement from the State Education Department that our teachers participate in 15% of their overall PD over a 5-year period. In CTLE hours, they have to be dedicated to language acquisition. So it keeps our multilingual department very busy, creating training opportunities to meet the needs of our teachers. And then our bilingual and ENL teachers actually need to achieve 50% of their training hours. So again, there's a lot of PD taking place. We have a strong Native American resource program, and we've been partnering with the Native American Parent Student Committee with the Title VI funding, so we continue to improve that program. And I could go on and on. So many different departments have contributed to this work. You can see the team with Dr. Ramona Reynolds has contributed to the parent and family engagement section. Dr. Sharon Brown's team put together a really robust section on SEL and what health and wellness looks like in our classrooms, what PBIS looks like, what attendance supports look like, et cetera. So a lot of different departments have contributed. And again, we did meet with BCSA members, we met with VTF members, we met with the parent groups, so we've had a lot of input into the types of things they'd like to see in the plan itself. So I've talked a lot. Feel free to ask any questions.
Well, thank you. Dr. Lou.
Yeah.
Lou, would you like to?
I would. Thank you,
President Petrucci.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Yeah, it's an extremely comprehensive document, and I will say that it reflects many of the needs and wants of the district. I see so much in here that people have asked for, community groups have asked for, board members have asked for, teachers have asked for, administrators. Because we're not a one-size-fits-all district, and we need different things for different students. I will say, I just kind of gave it a cursory review, but what really jumped out at me, even though it's hidden on page 96, was the early warning intervention and monitoring system about using data to identify when our kids need an appropriate intervention. I think that's going to reap huge benefits for the individual students and by relation for the district as well. It's something we've talked about forever, and I'm so glad to see it finally.
Chief Bullock and her team have put together a really exciting opportunity that will be rolled out this year.
Yeah.
So on top of all the work they've done with the data portal and the data lake, now we have the early warning intervention and monitoring system.
I think this is going to be great, and just like the WAS Ed stuff, and like the AP and the partner with the College Corps, like all the things that we've been talking about, you know, to offer a comprehensive education for our children, because they all want different things, and for the district to be able to offer this is wonderful. And the plan itself, like the role of the plan, I mean, this is extremely comprehensive. That's a 150-page document, but a good 150-page document. 150-page document that has a lot of good stuff in it.
Well, we recognize that no one's going to sit and read 150 pages. So when we met with the principals, we went over the plan with them, and we asked them to slowly roll it out to their staff. So they spent about a half an hour the first day back going over, this is sort of an overview of what the plan has. And then throughout the course of the year, we'll be working with teachers to make sure that they understand everything that's available to them in the plan.
But no, that concludes my questions and commentary. Thank you very much. This is wonderful work for everyone.
What's not in here?
Yeah, we tried to be as comprehensive as possible. One of the things that I have heard over the course of my career is, I wish you guys did blank, and I would say, well, we do. But it wasn't captured somewhere.
Yeah, yes.
So this is part of our goal, is that people will understand. For example, we do have AP courses.
Right.
We do have dual enrollment courses. It's the same thing that was happening in the suburbs.
We do.
Right, but sometimes people don't realize that, so we wanted to make sure that it shows us.
What you were just going through, is that live on the website?
Yeah, it will be. We're building the website.
So it's not live yet?
So it's been sent to all the schools, so all teachers and administrators have it. You guys now have it. The parent groups will be, I asked them to wait till after tonight, and then they can share it out as well. But we're building a website page to house it, because again, it's dense. We want to highlight the sections that are most relevant for the community. So I met with the parent group on, I think it was Monday, and they gave me suggestions for what they would like to see on the website, like a format. So I have a meeting with IT tomorrow to discuss what that layout would look like. The plan itself, we can share anywhere, but we will have that on the pages, but the pages are being built.
Okay. I think it's also very helpful to board members when we get questions for us to find where that because we know it exists, but for us to be able to go somewhere that's centrally located and pull it out from a document, this would be very helpful.
Something else I should mention, it is hyperlinked in there, but our course catalog I think is useful when parents have questions about like what offerings we have.
It's awesome.
Can you see? I can't see my screen.
I really think putting the course catalog as a compendium of information was a brilliant idea, because so often we got those questions as to what does the district offer, and people just did it wasn't a direct route to find the information. You had to go kind of the circuitous route to get to it, but put it all in one place and make it easy and accessible is wonderful.
Yes. So, I mean, one thing that everyone doesn't always understand, they think we have every single course at every single school, which is obviously not possible. You can't have every CTE program at every school. But we do try to have, if it's only offered at one school, it will say that in the course catalog. This is unique to this particular building. But most of our courses could be offered, depending on students' requests and things like that, could be offered at most schools.
I really think when this is live, that there should be a press release with this shared with media. I highly recommend it. So other questions I have, you mentioned that BTF had membership involved. How were they selected? How did?
The BTF gave me the name.
So you went to BTF, and how many teachers?
5 or 6 people, and we met several times during the course of the summer. They reviewed pretty much the entire plan, gave me feedback on what to tweak.
Okay.
If there's something was missing that they thought should be part of it. For example, they asked that in the special education section we add more about the referral process. So we went back and added a section in there to explain what a referral looks like, and like how you get to that point before the CAC.
Okay, great. So as far as ELA, in particular 9 to 12, and the mention of modules,
yes,
are those required?
Yes.
They are required. And are those New York State modules?
They were originally designed by New York State. We've changed them slightly over the years. So we embedded Step Up to Writing. We've replaced some of the state modules with our own. So I talked about Code Talkers. That is replacing one of the state modules because we want it to be more responsive to our Indigenous population. We've added fences in one grade level, pulled something else out. So we've made strategic changes over the course of time.
Okay. And so it's an impressive document, but like our code of conduct, our wellness policy, and I see it as an educator myself, you have great plans. How has this been, or how will it be rolled out in buildings so that people on the ground are aware of it and are using it?
So you got a 150-page document, right? I'm sure you were like, oh, this is kind of thick. So when we first shared it with the principals, I'm sure many of them were trying to figure out, what am I going to do? But as people become more familiar with it, I think they're much more excited. Because like I said, the feedback from the principals on the committee was that they wanted a one-stop shop. They wanted to be able to draw their teachers to, like you mentioned with parents or community, oh, you need to go to the K2 section for math. I want you to go there, read this, let's talk about it. Here are some hyperlinks, let's go look at the planning tools that are available. Let's look at the assignment reflection protocol that's embedded in the document. How are you using that in the classroom? So it's an opportunity for them to talk to teachers during grade level meetings, faculty meetings, or private conferences. And we are going to offer PD throughout the course of the year for the teaching staff, just to make sure they're familiar. We also want to do more with our teacher aides and teaching assistants. So one of our goals over time is to craft more responsive training modules for them as well. So we'll get some of their feedback. What would they like to see specific to this plan in training?
And this is just really, I think, it's just a question for you. There's been some news, some people in the news talking about this. We just got an invite, maybe all of us got an invitation to this presentation on the science of reading.
On November 5th?
Maybe. You're on the panel. So, like, it's coming at us like this is something new or that we're not understanding. Not we, just educators aren't understanding, not us BPS in particular. And I'm just wondering what your take is on that, and you know, how would you just define or describe our reading approach in early elementary?
We do take a scientific approach.
Okay.
I'm sure there are probably people in the community that weren't aware of that. I don't know that every district does the same thing. So over time, we've become more and more based on scientific reading research. So there was a time, like with the initial adoption of Journeys, there's some elements of it that are more balanced literacy. We've slowly sort of phased those components out. We've replaced the phonics in Journeys with our own phonics lessons based on our training from letters. We put Haggerty in place for all the phonemic awareness and phonology pieces instead of what was in the program. So over time, we've become more and more attuned to what it takes to really appropriately teach foundational skills. The decodable books that you guys recently approved, that is for students to use in K2 classrooms. So they will learn particular phonics skills, and then those decodable books allow them to practice those discrete skills with an actual text. So we've phased out some of maybe the trade books or level readers, and we're phasing in more of the decodable approach. So we try to be as aligned to the research as we can.
Okay. So
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, board members. I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. We've become more inclusive of a phonics-based approach.
I think we always had a phonics-based approach, but there's so much in the world of reading that is more of a whole languagey or balanced literacy approach. It's difficult to sometimes weed it out. So we've been very focused on the training we received through letters, the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. We use that to inform our practice. We trained all of our coaches in it. They can go in and support teachers with it. We're still rolling out letters to additional teachers. The ENL teachers are going to be receiving it as well. Orton Gillingham is right in line with that because we know it's a program that was developed for students with dyslexia. So we try to become more and more attuned to that scientific basis.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent work.
Chief Monticelli, if you could share how you became an invitee to be a part of the panel for the conference that's coming up, I think, you know, that will share, you know, just how much folks other places didn't necessarily know the work that we're doing here in Buffalo, but are quickly becoming acclimated, and your conversations with the folks that were in Texas.
So I did have an initial meeting with the people running the particular session you're referencing, and I don't know how aware they were of all that we do. So I was able to explain to them a lot of the things we've put in place over time. So letters, for example, there's whole states in the South that have adopted letters and are having their teachers go through it because they never taught with a scientific approach before. So we're ahead of the curve in a lot of ways. The fact that we've already adopted Orton Gillingham, I think, is really exciting. You see New York City doing that now. So they're going to be moving forward on that initiative. They're getting rid of the prior program that they were using, and they're moving toward an Orton Gillingham approach. So we've kind of been ahead of the curve in many ways. So it was exciting for me to be able to talk about that with people who are organizing this conference, just to make sure that they know where we stand and what we've been doing, all the great things that I think are going to come down the pike because of that work. We know that because of the pandemic, our youngest learners were probably the most affected because they didn't have that teacher in front of them with the hands-on manipulatives and things like that. So a lot of our focus will be at the primary grades with foundational skills in numeracy and literacy. So you're going to hear me talking about it a lot throughout the course of the next couple of years. That's why I'm excited about Haggerty, which is a very scientific approach to teaching phonology, the sounds of the language, and how those sounds apply to letters so that you can make that connection for phonics.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those things are very exciting, and I'm kind of a geek when it comes to this stuff, but we have a huge focus on the foundational skills. And so I was excited, to Dr. Rena's point, I was really excited to be able to talk about that.
Great. Glad to hear you're going to be part of it. That's great.
So, Board Member Wood, do you have any comments on this? No? Okay. So I want to say when we get it right, we get it right. And I watched America Got Talent. Okay, Buffalo Public Schools got talent. Okay, when we get it right, we get it right. And I am just so impressed This is what a new day looks like in Buffalo Public Schools. You know, I feel the excitement. I feel you radiate the excitement, and I just know that we're moving our district in the proper way. I am not one to sugarcoat things, but this one right here, you get a ooh wow, and you get a go.
I love taking credit, but I can't. I mean, the central office teams that supported this and the committees that met with me and gave me feedback and steered me in slightly different directions at times.
Well, you can tell this is a team effort. We know that this is not one, but you guys get a gold buzzer for this one. And that's the truth. Okay, thank you so much. I think what's important is, as Larry said, Board Member Scott said, that we need to be about tooting our own horn. We just had a charter school come and present as if they had reinvented the egg, and we're looking like we're already doing that. We're doing it in a bigger way than you ever imagined doing it, and so we owe it to ourselves and to our district to toot our own horns and start doing that in a better way, so people can understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I think the document's also a reflection of Dr. Williams' leadership, because it's evident that everybody participated, and I just get the feeling that people felt free to speak as to what was most valuable to them or their department or their needs for themselves and their children. I mean, it's very evident in this document, even through my cursory review, how inclusive and how comprehensive it is.
And because Dr. Williams had already established her commitments, it was easy for us to align. So we were able to say, like, well, we already do that. This is awesome. We're in the right place. Or, oh, that's something we need to focus on. We're moving forward in that section. So the fact that her strategic plan was available to us as we were finalizing a lot of this made it a lot easier to make sure we were moving in the right direction. So her work informed the work of these committees as well.
Well, this is proof that teamwork makes the dream work. You're doing some great work in your leadership, Superintendent Williams. How are you feeling? We want to know. Are you feeling okay, or how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling okay. Just prayers for the family. I'm feeling okay, though.
Okay, we're watching you because we think that you've been running like a steamship, an engine, and we want to make sure that you don't wear yourself out. So we're concerned about you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else to share tonight?
No, I'm as excited about this plan as everyone else is. We have more exciting stuff that will be shared in coming weeks and months. I promised an asset map. We've got an asset map of all of the resources in our schools that you're going to be getting. The code of conduct will be rolled out. So we've got a lot of good, exciting things that show that we are truly moving to the next level in a very strategic and intentional way. As we go out and we do instructional walks in schools, we'll be using this document to make sure where there's more support needed, we're able to provide that support to make sure that our children are getting what they need. Because we can't any longer gamble to say maybe this will work or maybe that will work. We needed a strategic, scientifically based map to tell us, you know, best practices on what our children need to be able to do after every single class. So I'm really excited about, you know, this work. Thank you, Ann. Thank the team. Thank Sharon. You know, thank everyone. Ebony, I could thank the whole cabinet. Thank the principals. Thank the teachers. I really appreciate the work that you put into it. I think it's very evident how much work went into this in a very short period of time. I truly appreciate it.
Right, a very short period of time. Imagine what can be done in a very short period of time with new leadership. Off the hook. Okay, I'm so pleased. Thank you so much. And you guys know I'm a tough person.
You are.
So when I give it up, I give it up. You
compliment from Sharon carries some weight.
I also want to say great work, and I'm proud of the new leadership and the results.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else to discuss, we can end our committee.
I like it.
Thank you all for attending, and we appreciate the work that went into presentations today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Two.